All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chang podcast. This is episode 61 featuring Rach, aka chumbyGal. Rach, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for dedicating time here today. How's it going?
It's good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate
My pleasure. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Please note that on the top right, you can see that this is indeed episode 61. On the bottom right, you can see both of our Instagram handles. Feel free to drop some follows. And we also have two commands for the podcast, every podcast actually. In short, the first one is !podcast. It's a way for me to get to know my Twitch friends on a more personal level, where they share their life experiences and stories. They talk about whatever they want, honestly, while I guide them through the conversation. And then secondly, we have !guest, which is a direct link to Rach's Twitch channel. She is a fellow streamer, so make sure to drop a follow and show some love. We love spreading positivity and good vibes. All right, well, we're gonna get started. Rach, feel free to give us an introduction about yourself, and feel free to include some of your hobbies and interests.
Okay. So hello, I am Rachel, or chumbyGal. I am a Twitch streamer. I recently started, I think in June or so of last year, when I finally got a actual PC and not just like a dinosaur laptop. I have a full-time job. I work in human resources and talent acquisition. I also teach part-time. I teach music, specifically an ensemble. My hobbies include playing with my dogs and my cat, drawing whenever I want to, whenever I have the chance to, and watching anime. And yeah, that's a pretty good recap. Go.
Yeah, sounds good. How would you describe your own personality?
I would say that I am pretty adventurous. I enjoy taking risks. I think there's a little bit of anxiety before the jump, but I really enjoy the fall. I'm not afraid to be vocal about things that I really care about. So I have like attended protests, or if I really believe in something, I'll put stuff on my social media because I believe that people have the power to change things if they choose to. I'm pretty analytical, thoughtful. I think a lot of people's first impression of me is that I'm actually kind of serious or mean, because in a lot of conversations, I'm the person that's really quiet and kind of just listening really intently. But I think a lot of it is because I want to know more about them before I start talking, because I don't want to accidentally say something that'll make them uncomfortable or weird. So I'm usually pretty careful when I first meet people.
Gotcha. Okay. And on a spectrum of either being like more of an introvert or an extrovert, where would you place yourself?
So it's interesting. I have taken the Myers-Briggs personality test. Multiple, like every so years, I'll take it. And it tells you on like a scale of super introverted to super extroverted, kind of where you fall on that spectrum. When I first started taking it, it said that I was 51% extroverted and 49% introverted. So like right on that line. As I've gotten older, as I take the test more often, I think the last time it said that I was like 78% extroverted. So I guess I became more extroverted as I grew up. But personally, I feel like COVID and the pandemic has made me a little bit more introverted, and I find that my social battery runs out like that, like super quickly. So I haven't taken it since, but I'd probably put myself a little more extroverted, but with introverted qualities.
Alrighty, for sure. So we're gonna start way back to like the days you were born. All right. So we're going back there. Give us like a huge overview of what you went through since the day you were born up until, let's say, the end of high school, and then I'll ask you specific questions from there.
Okay. Well, if you're talking about specifically the day that I was born, I have a story for that.
Perfect. We love stories.
So I have the same birthday as my older brother. That is 3 years older than me. We're not twins. We're exactly 3 years apart.
Wow.
And my dad always tells me this story where he says that he like, you know, when it feels like somebody is staring at you and you're like, maybe you don't know where they are, but it just kind of feels like someone's looking at you. He said that he woke up in the middle of the night because he felt like someone was staring at him. And so he woke up like with a start, like, what is this feeling? And my mom was standing at the end of the bed staring at him. And he was like, what's wrong? What's happening? And she's like, they're going to have this birthday, meaning me and my older brother.
Yeah.
So I have the same birthday as my brother.
Wow.
So everything was kind of shared growing up. Like I didn't even have my own individual birthday. And I became a middle child pretty quickly. I have 2 younger sisters, but my next closest sister was born only like a year and a half after me. So I don't have any memories without her. My parents are pretty Christian and conservative. So that was sort of my upbringing. I went to a private school growing up. It was a private Christian school and it was very small. So probably no more than like 200, 250 students. So your class sizes are going to be 20 kids max. I didn't know anything different at the time. So pretty much everyone at that school was white. I think I was one of like one other Asian person and people mixed us up constantly. We weren't even the same ethnicity. Like I thought we looked alike because I was like, I've never met anyone that doesn't, you know, like someone else that is also the same as me, I guess. But then like looking back on it, I'm like, that was a microaggression. Like people constantly confuse me with this person and I don't look anything like her actually now that I think back on it 20 years later. So but yeah, it was overall pretty good. And then I went to public school for 7th grade and on. My parents, I think my dad was kind of in and out of a job, so he couldn't really afford to keep putting us to private school. And they also felt like if you wanted to go into STEM, there's more opportunities if you are in public school because, for example, the private school that I went to didn't offer calculus. So if I wanted to be an engineer and I needed to take calculus, I couldn't do it, really. But I ended up not going into STEM, so, you know, there you go. But yeah, in high school, I joined a lot of clubs. I don't remember ever not being busy. I was like in ukulele club for a little bit, at a key club for a little bit. I was elected senior treasurer for student government my final year. I didn't take full IB. I just took like a couple select IB courses that I was really interested in. I was a pit orchestra kid. I tried to do musical theater, and then I was like, I don't really like singing in front of people. I prefer to play. And I was a percussionist. I was in wind ensemble. I was a band kid, orchestra kid. I competed in solo music for as long as I can remember. I forgot to mention that my parents put me in music lessons when I was like 3 years old. So I also didn't ever remember not taking music lessons. So that was a really important part of my life as well. I think that's the high level overview.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. So where exactly did you grow up, and if you ever moved, where did you move?
So I always just tell people that I grew up in Portland. Technically I grew up in Beaverton, Oregon, which is like a suburb just outside of Portland. I stayed there my whole life. My parents bought like a property. Their goal was to just kind of live and retire on that property. And I didn't move at all up through high school. I moved after I graduated because I went to college and stuff like that. Yeah, originally from Beaverton, Oregon.
I see. Okay, so now you're just staying in like SoCal, like that area?
Yeah, so for college, I initially went to the University down in Tacoma, Washington for a year. Decided that wasn't for me. Moved back to Portland, rented an apartment by myself, and then some opportunities arose. And in 2018, I moved down to SoCal, sort of like without any plans, flying by the seat of my pants, which is sort of refers back to what I told you about. I like taking risks and flying into
Yeah.
things. So moved down here, kind of split my time 50-50 between Portland and SoCal, and now I'm in SoCal more or less permanent.
Ooh, okay. Putting
For
it all
now.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you briefly mentioned what it was like growing up in like a Christian private school, right? So how would you describe the background and diversity of where you grew up just in general? You said Beaverton, right? Yeah.
Um, growing up, I mean, my parents. So sorry, I have to clear my throat.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Take your time.
So my parents, my dad specifically, his family immigrated to Oregon in the late 80s. So they're one of the oldest Chinese families in Oregon at all.
Mm-hmm.
So my family was pretty like deeply ingrained into the Chinese in Portland. There's like a Chinese association that my grandfather helped found, and they're like, if you look up anything about like the Chinese Historical Association, my grandma donated everything she owned basically to that society.
Mm-hmm.
So, but growing up, except for like some family friends, there weren't a lot of other Asian people around me. Portland itself is not extremely diverse. I think a lot of people think that it is. It's extremely white.
Mm-hmm.
So the school that I went to was mostly upper middle class white people. Like I always tell my boyfriend, I was like, a lot of girls in my class had horses, and I thought that that was normal, and I really wanted a horse. My parents did not get me one for reasons. You know,
Yeah.
if they got me a horse when I wanted one 20 years ago, it would still be alive today, and I don't know what I would do with it probably. So, yeah, a lot of white upper middle class people around me. But when I went to public school, I met more people that looked like me, and it was a little bit more diverse. And I actually think that it's getting more diverse as more people move to Portland. I think a lot of people, that's like their dream town, but still very predominantly white.
Okay, let's talk specifically about your family. So, what was your relationship like with your siblings and parents from before versus now?
So I was very much like my parent. I tried really hard to meet my parents' expectations. I think most kids do growing
Yeah.
up. I was the second child, so I didn't have quite as many expectations thrust on me as my older brother. He was the first boy,
Mm-hmm.
so you know he was the first one to go to college. If he got a B, he was in trouble. That kinds of stuff. I think my parents relaxed a little bit with me, but not a lot. Being conservative, there's a lot of like gender roles that they had certain expectations for me, how I was supposed to look, how I was supposed to act, the sorts of things that I was supposed to say. And I think I kind of followed it to the T up until about high school when I started taking some other classes and learning more about history and theory and religion and just what makes other people. And I felt like it sort of helped me be more sensitive because I think I was very much my like father's daughter and kind of fighting his fight.
Yeah.
And then I realized that I could kind of form my own opinions.
Mm-hmm.
So in high school, I really pushed back against them. I always think of myself as the problem child. I don't know if my siblings would consider me that. I think they would because I have a lot of memories of just fighting with my parents all the time.
Mm-hmm.
My siblings in general are a lot more reserved than I am. I think I'm not the loudest in like volume, but I have a lot of opinions that I say. Because I don't remember my brother ever fighting with my parents. And when I asked him, I was like, why do you never fight them? He was just like, it's easier not to. And that was just sort of take on it. And I was like, it's so hard to not say what you want to, though. Like, that's harder for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I could never do that. I was not able to like go with the flow at all. Both of my sisters actually stream, so you might meet them.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, my little sister is actually my youngest little sister. She's the one that kind of inspired me, like sort of encouraged me a little bit, which is funny. I would say that I kind of pushed my siblings away growing up because I felt like nobody understood me and I was so different and no one was going to be on my side. But as I've gotten older, and I think actually moving away from my family, sort of started to see that we're more similar.
Yeah.
We all have our own share of trauma. So we definitely don't agree on everything, but I have started to get along with them a little bit better and also see my parents a little bit more from where they're from, because at the end of the day, they're just people trying to do their best as well.
Yeah. Okay, so whenever you did act out or anything, how did your parents handle discipline?
Growing up, they used corporal punishment. So, yeah, smacking, spanking, that was all on the table. Chopsticks on the wrist, spatulas, whatever implements were at their disposal, really.
Yeah.
As I got older, obviously you can't really do that so much, but they didn't hesitate to take away privileges. So that would mean not going out, taking away my phone. My parents were also sort of like nosy. So, I mean, I know like social media was sort of getting big around the time that I was in middle school, high school. So my parents had passwords to everything. So if I was on Facebook, they had my Facebook password. They read my texts at night, so I couldn't say anything super weird. If they did read like me saying things that they didn't like, yeah, privileges getting revoked. Can't use the computer, the family computer or whatever. Can't, I don't know. They just didn't hesitate to take away my hobbies and things that made me happy to keep me in line.
Okay, gotcha. And let's see. Out of curiosity, so you have a Chinese background, right? What languages or dialects do you guys speak at home? Or did you grow up with?
My parents, this is a sore spot for me because I don't actually speak any dialects. I know a little bit of Mandarin, probably about the same amount as like 2 or 3-year-old. I have like 6-year-old cousins that point and laugh at me because I cannot carry a conversation with them. But my parents they both speak Cantonese. My grandma was very proud to be someone that speaks Cantonese. They both speak a little bit of Mandarin as well. They can get by. My mom is an immigrant from Malaysia, so she was required to learn Mandarin, Cantonese, and Hakka as well. And then she moved to Canada when she was 11, and so she learned some French. So my mom is a polyglot, and I can only speak English.
All right, we're gonna transition to school life briefly. All right, so how did you perform academically throughout your educational career?
So I tried really hard. To my parents' credit, my dad very early on told me that he didn't really care what my grades were as long as I tried my best. But he also followed that with, I think your best means you can always get A's. So it was like, I believe in you. I believe as long as you're trying your hardest, I won't be disappointed. But I also believe that your hardest will get you an A. So I tried really hard. And I wasn't like top of my class, but I think if I remember correctly, I graduated from high school like top 20. I think it was like top 20 or top 30. So I wasn't valedictorian, but I wasn't like riding the bottom either. I was pretty proud of that. Yeah, and then through college, kind of just carried the same work ethic. I do try really hard. I do, but I also like don't try to push myself. I don't know. If I can feel that I'm really struggling on something, I'll seek help. But if I get all the help that I think that I can get and it's still struggling, then I'm not gonna like kill myself over it. So I graduated college with a 3.7 or a 3.8. So I have a high expectation for myself, but I'm also not your straight A 4.0.
Yeah. Still up there though.
Doing my best.
Yay. Let's talk about some of the things you were involved in. You mentioned quite a few. So Before we get into like the musical aspects, were you involved in any other sports or specific clubs and activities? You also mentioned Key Club, so we could talk about that too.
Yeah. So I did a lot of sports growing up.
Hmm.
I was that kid that wanted to do everything. So if I saw something that looked fun, I would, can I do that too?
Yeah.
Um, to her credit, my mom did her best, was raising three other kids. So she couldn't really bend to the whims of whatever I wanted at that time.
Hmm.
Um, I played soccer like first and foremost. I think that's the sport that I spent the most amount of time playing. And I like had dreams of doing it professionally for a little bit, but then they kind of took it back to my music.
Yeah.
It's hard to do both.
Oh, okay.
um, so soccer was probably the sport that I loved the most, that I spent the most time with.
Hmm.
But I also spent some time. I did some tennis. I did some golf. I even did like a fencing camp once. That was really fun to me. So yeah.
With those, what would you say your favorite memories are of each of those sports?
Mm, for soccer, I remember being on a team. We didn't win a single game. We
Ah.
lost every single game. But we had fun. I think I just remember like I don't know. I think our parents were probably more disappointed than we were, but like as kids, we were just excited to be running after the ball as fast as we could, and there was no strategizing, no tactics. We were just really excited to be there.
Hmm.
Um, so that's what I remember is being on a losing streak soccer team. But I made a lot of friends from that, and that was also in the time that I was in private school. So these were like my friends that were not from private school, and I didn't have a lot of those. So I remember
Hmm.
just being excited to have friends like sort of on the outside that were not a part of the school that I went to, and I don't know. And also like when the soccer moms give you like Oreos and Gatorade at the end of it, that's the best part.
Yeah. Okay, and then you said the other sports, they weren't really like your main sports, but how would you describe your experience with those? Tennis, golf, fencing?
Yeah, I dabbled in them. I
Hmm.
think I enjoy learning things. So for a while I think it's for me it's just a lot of fun to be a beginner at something and to be acquiring a skill. So for me the most fun was like the first day of anything when you're
Oh,
being
okay.
given the instructions and being taught like what the heck is this? Like, oh, this is a racket and you don't hit other kids with this and I don't know. So that's my favorite part. I think is just learning new things, which is probably why I switched focus so many times. Um, I don't know if I have any particular standout memories from either of those sports, just because
Yeah,
I
it's
just
all good.
dabbled. Yeah.
Okay, so that's sports, and then talk briefly about the clubs and activities you're involved in. Like you mentioned that you were like the senior treasurer and
hmm
also key clubs. So what went down with those?
I did Key Club. I only did it for about a year or two, just because trying to juggle that with all of the other extracurriculars that I was doing, I ended up not finding much time.
Hmm.
But mostly for Key Club, did like volunteering. I think my favorite volunteering experience, I went to the animal shelter and I got to pet cats.
Hmm.
There's nothing to not like about that. So that's the thing that I remember the most from Key Club. And like all the Asians in my school were in Key Club, so it was also a cool place to meet
Huh?
other Asians. um, for student government, yeah, I was the treasurer. And they are like elected positions, so it was like a class that you had to take.
Hmm.
I think I don't know if it was like zero period where it was like first period or something, but we did have to actually like run things and plan events in the school. So for the treasurer specifically, we did have to work with budgets and looking at that kinds of stuff, classic treasurer things. But we also planned all of the school like the pep rallies and assemblies and stuff.
Yeah.
So I know that a lot of kids hate going to those because you just listen to people talk for an hour and then you go back to your classroom. But I remember me being in student government specifically, we tried really hard to make it fun for people. So the assemblies were more like little skits and plays to kind of keep people involved. I remember being really proud of them. I don't know if other people enjoyed them, but
Hmm.
I was proud of it.
All right, and it sounds like a bulk of your overall life experience was dabbled in music. So give us like your perspective of what you've went through.
That's a
So many
tall order.
things.
So I mentioned that my favorite part is learning something new.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of that with music. My parents put me in violin classes, private lessons when I was 3 years old. Apparently, they first tried to put me on piano, but my hands were too small. So, because I had baby hands because I was 3. With violin specifically, it's a customizable size. So you can be an infant and have a violin that is customized to your tiny fingers. So that's why I learned violin at 3. And then at around 7 or 8, I started taking piano lessons as well. I took classical piano for maybe 3 or 4 years. And at the same time, I auditioned into a youth orchestra. It was not related to any school. It was an independent orchestra. It was the first youth orchestra in the nation. Remember that fact. And it has a really rigorous like process to get into it. Like even at 8 years old, you still had to like learn a solo piece. You had to learn excerpts, which is part of like a college audition or when you're trying to get into an orchestra. You had to play like scales on the fly. So at 8 years old, I was already in this competitive atmosphere where I was vying for placements, trying to get into ensemble. And then when I got to middle school, a lot of my friends, it was a weird dynamic at the school where popular kids were in band, and it was my first time being in a public school, so I didn't have any friends. So I was like, okay, what's the fastest way to make friends? And I just kind of looking at it from an outsider perspective, I was like, I have to join band, which is weird because I don't think at pretty much any other school that would be the thing that makes you cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I remember like one of the girls that I wanted to be friends with, she was like a cheerleader, but she also played bassoon. So I was like, okay, that's what I have to do too. I'm gonna play bassoon. So I picked up bassoon when I was in 8th grade, played it into high school. Around the same time, I switched to learning viola because there's a lot of people that play violin. There's not many people that play viola. It's less competitive, but I still wanted to play. So switched to learning viola, was also in the same youth orchestra playing viola. And then in high school, continued to play bassoon, continued to play viola, and I started learning more jazz piano as opposed to classical piano. That only stuck around for like a year or 2. I didn't really like my teacher.
Yeah.
I dabbled in other instruments. I like picked up a baritone at one point. Didn't really like that very much, so I don't really not really a brass person. So if there's any trumpet, trombone, French horn, I apologize. I don't know much about brass. And then my sophomore year of high school, I had a really big crush on this guy, and he was a percussionist. And I was like, okay, this is all just like me trying to get close to people that I think are cool or that I like. So he was a percussionist, and I had a big crush on him, and I was like, how can I hang out with him? Okay, I have to also become a percussionist. So I started learning how to play mallets, like marimba, xylophone. He actually got switched to playing snare, so we didn't even end up being in the same section. So my evil plans went down the toilet.
Ooh,
but
that backfire, yeah.
It backfired. But I found that I actually really liked playing the like percussion instruments, so I just kept at it. And I kept playing. Specifically, the 2 instruments that are probably the most important to me are marimba and viola, and I kept playing those after I graduated high school. And for viola, I was competitive. I went to state competitions playing viola, and also participated in like Northwest Ensemble Band competitions as well. For percussion, there is an activity called Drum Corps International and also Winter Guard International that if you are a percussionist or a brass or a color guard dancer, you can participate in those activities. So that took up a lot of my life. It's hard to explain. I can get more in depth in it if you like, but yeah, that is kind of what has carried me through is Drum Corps and WI.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I don't perform as much. I mostly just.
You said teach? Oh,
Mhm.
okay. So talking about being a part of competitions, what was like the like mental preparation for that like? And would you say you're just like a natural when it comes to performing?
Definitely not. um, I've had a lot of instructors in the past tell me that I look very boring when I play. I think it's hard to look interesting and also concentrate. I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
skill that a lot of people don't think about. Um, like if you're taking a test and suddenly somebody asked you to look really interesting, what would you look like? How would you perform that? So that was sort of the problem that I had when I first started competing, was that I looked very stiff, boring. And that was something that I really struggled with up until maybe 2021. I didn't figure it out in high school, sure. Um, but as far as mental preparation, it's just you want to practice it enough that even if your brain kind of goes on autopilot, that you can still perform it. I
Yeah.
think there were definitely a couple competitions where I walked out of it and I was like, what happened? What did I do? It's kind of like when you're on autopilot when you're driving around. Like, you don't want it to happen, but sometimes it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to practice enough that you have some muscle memory, or like sometimes you would kind of like wake up in the middle of like performing and suddenly be right where you are, like in the middle of your piece, and you just have to be focused on the moment. Um, Kind of just comes down to a lot of a lot of practicing.
Yeah.
I don't know, mental preparation. You're just nervous, but you get over it. Have
Mm-hmm.
to.
So with many years of being involved with music and instruments, what's like the biggest takeaway for you personally, and what would you also consider as your greatest accomplishment?
Greatest takeaway is that people overvalue talent and undervalue hard work. I think it's true for pretty much anything.
Mm-hmm.
Any skill that you acquire, whether it's singing or drawing or any kind of artistic venture, most people's first go-to for a compliment is, "Oh my gosh, you're so talented. How did you? Like, how did you? I couldn't ever do." And most people say that, and it's like, well, have you ever tried? Have you ever practiced before? Have you ever put in hours in the sun doing your best and crying and sweating and bleeding? Like, because if you haven't, then you can't say that you could never do that because you just haven't done it before. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that if you really wanted to, I don't know. Do you play viola? But I'm like, if you wanted to be like a really amazing violist, you could probably do it now if you just started putting in the hours and the time and the effort. Um, and as far as my greatest achievement, I think I was the first live string soloist in drum corps international history back in 2014 when I was 17 years old. That is something that I think a lot of people didn't really start paying attention to me until I performed again on viola in 2016. But for me, I was very proud as a little baby to be performing as the first live string soloist. So that's something that I'll always remember.
Like a prodigy.
Not a prodigy. I worked really hard.
Uh-huh. Alrighty. So that was the musical aspects in your life. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention in regards to like clubs, activities, or any other things that you're involved with, like within school?
I'm trying to think. Most of what I did was performance,
Mm-hmm.
so mostly music,
Okay.
percussion.
Yeah, you could just let me know if anything comes up to mind.
Yeah.
So with that being said, what would you say your high school stereotype was? Like, what were you regarded as by the other students and kids?
I really, really did not want to just be that academic. So I tried really hard not to be that person because that was kind of what I got shoehorned into. It was like, oh, there's an Asian girl that's like sort of smart, so you must have all A's and be really good at math, right? Um,
Hmm. Okay.
I hated that stereotype. So I sort of became the other stereotype where I was the Asian that had some piercings and dyed hair instead,
Hmm.
by trying really hard to not fit that stereotype. But probably more so than anything else, I was just that music kid. I was that band nerd. Probably. I don't know. I kind of
Band
dabbled
nerd.
in everything. I don't know if I really fit a stereotype because
Yeah.
I was a band nerd, but I also did pit orchestra for theater, and I also did student government, and I did IB. So I kind of was a jack of all trades. So I
Hmm.
think people might have tried to stereotype me, but I also was doing way too many things to fit into
To
any
fit,
one
yeah.
niche. Yeah, the cool Asian. That was what I wanted to be.
So, from what you've experienced, how would you compare the educational style of a private school and a public school since you did transition throughout like your high school career, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for private school, at least the school that I went to, it was a focusing on like a classical um education. So there's a heavy emphasis on arts and literature. So I was studying Shakespeare at like fourth and fifth grade,
Mm-hmm.
studying poetry, writing poetry young. We also did like Shakespeare plays in fourth and fifth grade, which I don't know what the normal, like, it's hard for me to compare because I don't know what the normal elementary school education was.
Yeah.
But I also studied Latin as well. So I studied Latin from third grade through sixth grade. I think that that gave me a really unique perspective on English language structure because you can see how our language has derived from Latin and how many words that we use are exactly from Latin. And then if you go on to study Spanish or Portuguese or French, they're all Romance languages. So if you have a basic understanding of Latin, then you pick up basic meaning of either of those languages pretty quickly. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess that would probably be one of the biggest differences is I don't know a lot of other people that studied Latin.
Yeah.
And I also think that because of that, because I had such a big emphasis on language and structure and English and writing, it made writing a lot easier for me growing up. In like high school and in college, crafting essays was never something that stressed me out. I feel like I could turn out an essay pretty quickly, like in a night. Um, Whereas I would see other people that maybe struggled and had a lot of problems understanding, grammar or punctuation. Um, just sort of those things that I think that was sort of a gift that I had, because it was drilled into me when I was.
Mm-hmm. All right, so a topic that I usually bring up when it comes to school is actually bullying. Have you ever went through any form of bullying? And if so, how did you kind of like counter that or just go through it?
I don't have any memories really of being bullied.
Mm-hmm.
I think people might have left me out of things or not invited me to certain events, and that probably really hurt me at the time. But I've
Yeah.
always sort of just been like a single-minded. Like I'm like, okay, if they don't want to hang out with me, then I don't want to hang out with them. Why would I want to hang out with them if they're just gonna leave me out of things? So I would pretty quickly recover from those things. I think a certain amount of mental grit, maybe.
Yeah.
But I do know my younger sister, and I don't want to totally just share her story, but one of my
Mm-hmm.
younger sisters was bullied, and we were going to the same school at the time. I remember the girls picking on her, and I think I've said before that I'm pretty vocal when I think that things are not right.
Yeah.
So even in like sixth grade, I just remember going up to these girls and being like, "You're picking on my sister? Why would you do that? Like, she's so cute." And they would yell at me. I don't know. They probably didn't think she was cute, but that's sort of the biggest bullying I think that I had to face was
Yeah.
trying to stand up to people that were bullying someone that I really cared about.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost harder, I think, to watch it happen and not be able to think about it or really affect any kind of change
Yeah.
in the mindsets of 8-year-olds.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so aside from bullying, have you ever personally been in a physical altercation or fight?
No.
Okay.
I think if someone was annoying me, I might have kicked them.
Ah.
Um, it wasn't like serious, I guess. Oh, actually, now that I think of it, there wasn't like ever like a one-on-one fight. Like I didn't ever get into those kinds of things. But there was an instance where it was always girls versus boys, very typical. But I remember I was at an outdoor camp school, and I think we started throwing pine cones at the boys. I don't know why. We thought it would be fun. And they started throwing pine cones back at us, but they were boys, so they were like aiming for our faces and our heads, which wasn't cool because we were aiming for their toes and their feet and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the pine cones hit me in the eye, and it scratched my cornea, and so I couldn't see anything out of my eye for a little bit. So if you look at photos from me from the outdoor camp, I had to wear an eye patch for a couple of weeks. That's probably the most like physical that I ever got. Yeah, it's the pine cone story. My dad was really pissed because we figured out exactly which boy threw the pine cone at my eye, so he had to answer to my dad. That's probably the worst it ever was.
Oof, that kind of leads to my next question. So aside from the pinecone story, have you ever sustained any severe injuries in your life?
I broke my toe. I
Ouch.
I move pretty often, so I have like suitcases and stuff. And specifically, a couple years ago, I had like a really fat suitcase that had like all of my personal belongings in. And I was walking down the stairs, and I tripped, and my suitcase, like I tripped down the stairs, and my suitcase like fell on my toe as I slid down the stairs, and I didn't really think anything of it. I think I was just like, oh man, that really sucks, and it hurts really bad. And we like just kept doing whatever I was doing, and then later I looked at it and I was like, oh, it's really swollen and it's bruised and it's bleeding. That's not very good. But you can't really do anything with a broken toe. You kind of just tape it to the other toe and move on. So that's about it. Just a toe.
So it just healed on its own? Like you didn't have to go to the hospital or anything?
Yeah, cause I kind of leads into what I said a little bit about like drum corps, which is it's competitive and you're practicing a lot, and there's like some physical trainers. I had to go to like a rehearsal almost like right after that, like a couple days after.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a lot. I didn't have a lot of downtime to like go to the doctor or anything, and I wasn't like I wasn't unable to walk, so I wasn't like gonna go to the ER or anything.
Yeah.
So I went to like my rehearsal. I had it be assessed by a physical trainer, and he was just like, yeah, you just tape it to the other toe. And I would just have to stand on my broken toe and try not to think about it. But my sister's like, you broke your toe? Yeah, I don't really talk about it that much, but it did happen.
Ouchies.
Sorry I didn't tell you.
Okay. So, how did you determine what career path you wanted to get into?
That was a pretty big trip for me.
Mm-hmm.
Being someone that was so involved in music, I felt like it was the only natural choice. I wanted to be an artist when I was really little. I used to draw storybooks and write my own stories and stuff. But then I was kind of like, I don't know if that's a real career path. I don't know if I can be an artist. So when I graduated high school, I declared that I was going to be a viola performance major. And that is what I originally got into the University of Sound for, was viola. When I got there, I decided that I actually didn't like all the practicing that performance majors have to do. I like a certain amount of practicing, but not that much.
Yeah.
They're in the practice rooms, they live there, set up shop there, sleep there. So I decided to go into music education instead. And that was more fun. That was more up my alley. I like music education. But then I remember a specific distinct day. I was with all of the other music ed majors, and they were talking about how excited they were to have their own classrooms and write lesson plans. And I was just sitting there and like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that at all. I don't want to teach students in the classroom setting. I don't like that. I don't want to say I don't like kids, because I don't know if that's a very popular opinion, but especially like little kids, I just don't really know how to act around them. So it's probably more of a me thing and less of a them thing. But after that, I decided that I was going to transfer out of University of Town because I was there on a music scholarship. I didn't want to be a music major anymore, so kind of just made sense. I actually decided to follow my initial passion, and I got into Portland State on an art scholarship. So I was going to be a fine arts studio major. I did that for a year. Also realized that I don't like doing art under pressure. I like doing it whenever I want and not
Yeah.
having someone dictate that for me. So I was kind of lost. I was like, these are the things that I know that I love, so I don't know what I'm going to do now. So I sort of just ended up in business because I was like, well, this is where people go and they have no idea what other thing they're going to do. I was a marketing major for almost all of my college, all of the rest of my college career. And then my senior year, I remember meeting with my advisor, and they were like, "Oh, you're not going to graduate this year. No, there's another class you have to take. Didn't someone tell you this?" And I was like, "What the heck? No, I was supposed to graduate with a marketing degree this year." They're like, "No, there's another class you have to take it. Sorry, you're not going to graduate this year." And I was like, "No, I'm graduating this year." So I found out that if I switched to a management major and took like 3 additional classes, that I would graduate that year. And I prioritized graduating that year over a marketing degree. So my senior year, I switched to a business administration, management, and leadership major, and just kind of steamrolled my way until I graduated.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so since we're into the topics of college, how would you give us like the overview of your college life up until where you're at now? And then I'll ask you more things related to like work and other stuff.
So the only time that I ever lived on campus was when I went to Puget Sound, which I don't know if you've ever visited Tacoma or Puget Sound, but it's gorgeous. It is a beautiful campus. It's all like red bricks. It's very expensive to go there too. And I worked in the Office of Finance when I was there, so I saw exactly how much money goes into keeping it a beautiful campus. It's excessive. But yeah, I had a lot of trouble making friends my first year of college. I think I've told you before that I am pretty quiet when I first am introduced to new social settings, and I kind of maintained that for a while. And I was still traveling every weekend to go rehearse with a competitive percussion ensemble. So I was out every single weekend because I was at rehearsal.
Yeah.
So when most people are making friends on weekends, going out and going clubbing or going to bars, I was practicing 12 hours a day. So
Jeez.
I did not make friends very easily. But I think once the other music education majors figured out what exactly I was doing, they thought it was kind of cool. And so we sort of became friends off that. And then I transferred out and kind of just had to start afresh. Portland State, which is where I transferred to after that, is a school. So you can live on campus, but because my parents were from there, it didn't make a lot of sense to. So I lived at home for a little bit and commuted, and then rented an apartment and just commuted from there. And I do not really have any friends that I made from college. I kind of just went to class and then went back home.
Yeah.
All of my college friends were from the different performance ensembles that I was in because that was what I spent all of my time doing. So, I mean, I enjoyed it. I also did some online courses for a little bit too. I know people that are taking school during the pandemic are probably like, why would you subject yourself to that? But at the time, it was a means to an end, and it let me have more free time to rehearse and do more percussion things. So, did a lot of hybrid stuff, and then I graduated. And yeah, I don't really have any ties to my university at all.
So ever since graduating, you've been just working? Is that it so far? And then, of course, streaming, which we'll talk about later.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about your work experiences. So you could talk about the very first job that you got, and then just give us an overview, and then just move on from there up until where you're at today.
Okay. So this is also another thing that I was just thinking about semi-recently, but I don't remember ever not working. As soon as I could when I was younger, probably like around 12 or 13, my mom started asking if I wanted to teach violin lessons. And you're thinking, like, you're 12 or 13, like, what could you be teaching? I was teaching other kids that were like 5 or 6. So teaching them how to hold a violin, how to, play basic notes, scales. So she would kind of round up like other people's kids. I don't know, like family, friends, kids that lived in the neighborhood, and make them all take lessons from me. So after school, I would teach private lessons. It wasn't like a formal job, but I made money from it. Like, as far as like private lessons go, I was probably making like $15 an hour, which at 12 or 13 is a crazy amount of money. And then I also did busking, which if you've ever seen a performer on the street playing for tips, that is what I would do in my free time. So especially on like during summer vacation, I would go to Portland's really known for its farmers market. So I would go to the Portland farmers market. I would bring my little viola, whatever. My sisters were also in on it too. So you just stick 3 Asian kids with string instruments on the corner and you make them play for a couple hours. We would make a decent amount of money because people would be like, hey, like you're really small and you're sort of good at this, so let me give you $10. So we would make like a decent amount of money from that. And again, this is all still while I'm in like middle school. I didn't really see it as a job, but looking back on it, I was like, it's kind of a job. People that do that for a living, that play on the streets. And then as soon as I graduated high school, what was my very first job? I started working at the Office of Finance, which I mentioned a little bit, at Puget Sound. That was a work study, but I was like the desk assistant, so I opened their mail, I answered people that walked in the door, I filed things. It was not exciting, not flashy at all, but it was interesting. I just looked at what they spent all their money on, and I would make mental notes to it because I don't know, it's crazy. Like you spend $50,000 a year on watering your grass or something. Like that was crazy. And then I think after that, my first like formal job that was not through university, I started working at a boba shop.
Nice.
Yeah, I worked at 0 Degrees for a little bit. I worked at the first one ever that opened in Beaverton in Oregon. I know it's like a California chain down here, but it was the first one that opened up there. Did that for a while. I still have some friends from that job. It's kind of funny. For my very first job, I eventually became a waitress for a ramen shop, which I really liked. I liked working at the ramen shop. You made a lot of tips from that. And I also like taught sports. I taught like little kids how to play tennis and golf for a brief period of time. I was just working odd jobs. And then when I moved down to California, I also became a boba barista at another boba shop down here. It just made sense. I also waitressed for a little bit at a sushi shop. And now I am working in human resources at a hospital. That's my first grown-up job, graduated college. And as I mentioned before, I teach music, I teach percussion. So that is something that I started doing as soon as I graduated high school. I would teach high schools, like their marching bands, their percussion ensembles, and I have never stopped doing that. So everywhere that I go, whether I'm moving, I just would find a school that needed an instructor, and I started teaching there. So that's what I do when I'm not working and I'm not streaming. I'm teaching.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for the overview.
Yeah.
Specific question. So since you have worked and you still work with like a lot of people, right? So customers face on, do you have any like interesting stories about maybe how crazy people can be?
The nice thing about working in human resources is that you're sort of scary. People perceive you being scary. For the most part, people do not come at you with a lot of attitude. You would be surprised though, because you're like, your manager reports to my manager, and all I have to do is tell my manager that you're being really mean to me. So I don't know why you would like do that. But I definitely don't abuse my power, I swear. I was an HR assistant for before I was an HR rep. So now I mostly deal with only people that are being hired into the hospital. So not as much like public facing. I do some like interviewing for people that want to get a job at the hospital. But I think my most recent, which was a couple of years ago, I was working with the volunteer program at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a woman. She was supposed to complete court appointed hours, which means that she had gotten some kind of offense, and they said that the only way for her to, work it off was to volunteer somewhere. So she was supposed to complete her hours with the clinic that I was at, and she didn't contact me for like a really long time. I remember when I first got into the job, the person who had it before me was like, "Oh, by the way, she needs to complete her hours. She'll contact you about it later." And I was like, "Okay, so I'll keep an eye out for whenever this person contacts me." She didn't contact me for like 9 months, like a really long amount of time. She didn't contact me, and then about a month, like, because you have a time that you're supposed to complete these hours by. So, but I was like, I don't know anything about her. I don't have her contact information. She has mine. She's supposed to contact me. So I was just waiting for someone to reach out to me. She reached out to me about like 2 or 3 weeks before her due date, before she was supposed to complete all of her hours. And so I remember I did what I could, and I was like, okay, well, I'll set you up. You'll come in on this day. This will be your schedule. Her day to start came and went. She did not come in. So I was like, okay, like you have like 80 hours that you need to do. We're like 2 or 3 weeks before you're supposed to be finished. Like there's a set amount of time when you can complete these hours. So push your day back, set it as a new start date, and she was like, okay, cool. Day came and went. She did not come in. So I was like, okay, this girl is crazy. Like, I'm stressed out for you because these are court appointed hours. Like, I know you need to finish these or else you're going to jail. So pushed her start date back one more time. She didn't come. This was like the third day that I like pushed her start date back. So I remember having like a serious conversation with her where I was like, I don't think you're gonna finish these hours, and like I'm stressed for you. And she just kind of like didn't really say anything. And then I got like a really angry call from her mom later that day, basically being like, do you understand how important it is that she completes these hours? And I was like, does she understand how important it is that she completes these hours? Because she's not acting like it. I set her a start date. I was like, I have the receipts. I have all the emails of all the time she's supposed to come in. She hasn't come in. And she's like, well, she has trouble. She has a hearing aid. She can't really hear, And I was like, we're emailing. It doesn't matter that she can't hear me. She can read that she's supposed to come in. And she's like, well, do you want my daughter to go to jail? And I was like, I don't want her to go to jail, but I'm doing the best that I can. I can't make her come in. So eventually, like, I just had to kind of put on like my mean like face. I don't know, because I'm very nice at work. I'm very nice. But I just had to be like, this is not my fault. It's her fault. Like, I will send you all of the emails. But I was like, you are not going to come and call me and yell at me because your daughter did not complete her court-appointed hours. I was like, I'm doing everything that I can do. If she doesn't complete them, that's on her. I was like, I'm doing my best. I was like, I have nothing against your daughter. I have nothing against you. I want her to succeed. I don't want her to go to jail. But I was like, if you're going to come at me with that kind of attitude, we're going to have a problem. And she just like sat down for a second and she's like, she'll be here tomorrow. And she came in and completed her hours. And
nice.
I was just like, I don't know, like, I am not the one that has like my life at stake right now. It's not me. Like, I'm doing what I can. So I was mean, Rachel. I don't even think I was being mean. I think I was just telling it how it is.
Yeah, you said it straight.
Yeah.
Interesting story. Sheesh. Yeah, so I was also thinking about how you were serving a lot of people, from being in like the boba shops, ramen, sushi, and I'm sure there may have been times where there's like difficult people to deal with. So if you recall anything, you could definitely let me know about that too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I try not to think about them.
It's all good. What would you say the pros and cons are of teaching, especially the percussion, right? Yeah, your thoughts.
Pros are that you get to be more than a teacher to some of these kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm teaching high school students, and it wasn't that far away for me that I was in high school. It's getting there. It's getting kind of far away, but um, I don't know. High school is such like an important and momentous time for kids because they're figuring themselves out. They're deciding where they want to go to school. Oh yeah, I also worked at like I said, I never stopped.
Yeah.
But you get to be just like such an important person. Like you teach them, like you're giving them skills to an instrument that they want to learn, which is important in and of itself because that's something that they value. They want to learn how to play this instrument. They want to be good at it. But I think my favorite parts of teaching are when students will come to me asking for life advice. They'll ask about how I handled such and such situation in high school. What do I think they should major in college? Which I'm like, I don't know how to answer that.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll ask me like, what college do you think I should go to? Which I'm also like, I don't know how to answer that either. They just kind of come to me for life advice, or I don't know. A lot of them also kind of want to follow in my footsteps and go on to do competitive percussion and join some of the groups that I was in. So they'll ask me, how did I get into them? What did I practice? What did I do? Who did I talk to? And I just like being able to give guidance to these students because I felt like I was kind of just playing it by ear when I went through all of that. I didn't really have like an older sister type person. I had an older brother, but he moved to the East Coast as soon as he could, so he doesn't live anywhere close to me. So I didn't really have somebody like that other than my parents. So it's nice to be like sort of a life coach, I guess, or like maybe a voice of reason to some of these students. And a lot of times they're going through really crazy things, like
Mm-hmm.
parents divorce or parents moving or siblings being mean to them or they're getting bullied, and I have the privilege to hear all about it and be someone that they can do.
Okay. So that's like more so of like the pros, like good things that can come out of this from teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say there's any cons?
You don't get paid very much at all.
Oh, okay, there's that.
Yeah, most people that do it, if you teach, like there are people that make a living off of teaching high school percussion. You pretty much have to teach like 4 or 5 different programs, as well as write and direct the music if you
Mhm.
want to actually survive. Just because you don't really get paid. I would say I don't experience as much of this. Maybe I did when I was a little bit younger and getting used to teaching. But sometimes kids are also kind of like they're little dicks. Am I allowed to say that? Sometimes
Yeah,
kids are little
yeah,
dicks.
you can.
And they'll give you attitude. So you kind of have to learn how to deal with that. I also think like as I am older, because high school kids stay the same. They're all going to be about 14 through 18 years old.
Mhm.
But as I get older, my ability to relate to them, I have to try a little bit harder because I'm not 14 through 18 anymore.
Yeah.
Can I say that? Hi, Cody.
All right. Do you need a break before we move on to other aspects of your life?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I might grab something to eat.
For sure, for sure. Do what you gotta do, and I'll just wait for you.
Okay. Can I turn my camera off?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Go for it. Streamception. Drink some water. What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in to the podcast, episode 61. Nice to meet some of you guys, by the way. It's really, really nice and just endearing to learn about my friends' life experiences. Heard lots about me. What the? No way. It's actually crazy. So you are one of Rachel's younger sister, right? The crazy thing is I actually recognize your name too. Uh, okay, I don't know about that one. Yo, you gotta chill. I think we're in a couple mutual circles. I wonder who. I have not heard about you until the custom Valo. I'm a nobody. It's okay. I'm actually just surprised that people are here, you know? The custom Valo games, I assume you're talking about the game show that I hosted, correct? I heard you had Ari on your stream the other day on your Valorant tournament. Oh yeah, you're talking about the game show then. Yes. And the crazy thing is I met Ari recently too. So I met Rach and Ari pretty recent. The game shows are relatively new. It's kind of like I woke up one day and I was like, you know, instead of hosting just Valorant tournaments, I want to host like little game shows because it takes a lot less time to manage and to kind of create. So yeah. But the tournament was crazy. Like, the tournament was a different story. It took like at least a month in advance of planning. And it was like, I swear there was like 100 people involved. So that was amazing to just get done. And Kay was a part of it. Kay was one of the infamous shoutcasters, one of the six. So the shout out to Kay beyond Koi, guys. Fun concept. Thank you for saying that. And yes, baby milk tea, specifically baby milk tea. Tourney was so good. Let's go. I'm just a small portion. Not even huge. Like, I literally met Kay on the spot and he's just like, oh, like, if you need someone I could shoutcast. And I was like, all right, you're in, let's go. Instant trust right there. And he was like, I didn't even have expectations and he still managed to exceed them. You know, if that makes sense. It's crazy. What's up, Cuddy? Welcome back to the stream. How's it going today? I don't even go here. Yeah. Cracked. Actually cracked. But yeah, thanks again for tuning into the podcast, guys. We still have quite a bit to go through. Next up, we have a lot of social life aspects. And then we'll get into, you know, the social media stuff, including Twitch. So that's big. So if it's Crack Wilson, you should see her play League. She be dunking on people. Wait a second, is that like a Darius reference? I have not played League in a really long time, but that's what I think about. Are you, wait, a League streamer specifically, or what do you like to do? Let's see. Oh, that's crazy. You don't play Valorant. I mean, it's not crazy, but it's like, wow. Meeting non-Valo players or people. It's been rare as of recent. Crack the Osu too? League and Osu. Okay, Lost Ark when it's not down. The Lost Ark grind. Her Lux is not something you want to go against. Ooh. Those snipes, huh? Broke my ankles on the court too? Wait, we're talking about basketball? Holy. Jack of all trades. That'll make me pukey. Yeah, Valorant could be very stressful, so I understand. Occasionally, okay. Thank you, Bacon. Done my night treatment. Is everything okay, Angel? Thank you again for the raid earlier. Appreciate that. She crossed me up. Chris cracked and Valo. Hello, welcome back.
Hi, hello again.
Hey yo, hey yo. All right, you good to go?
Yeah.
All right, cool. No worries, just do your thing. All right, so we're gonna talk about social life aspects. All right,
Okay.
give us an overview if you've gone through any of these phases or still, if you're still currently in one of these phases. Partying, raves, clubs, that sort of stuff.
So, a little known fact is that band party.
Wait, sorry, you cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna say a little known fact is that band kids party really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So we might be rehearsing all the time, but we've also pretty much throw parties whenever we can. That paused during COVID, so haven't really done so much since then.
Yeah.
My friends go pretty hard. I personally do not drink because it kills me. I really don't enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
So I am usually party mom. I'm the one that's making sure everyone is hydrated and eating food. That's really important. A lot of times people just drink a ton of liquid and then they throw it all up later. That's not fun. I have not gone to a rave, but I have a lot of friends that do. Part of me is like, I'm old. Like, I feel like I'm too old to go now. But one of my friends went to Countdown for the first time. We're the same age, so she's like, you're definitely not too old to go. So I know like EDC is coming up. I feel like that's like a little bit probably too soon for me, but I saw how many people were having fun at like Head in the Clouds, and I feel like that sounds like it would be really fun to go to. So
yeah,
that's maybe on my radar. Maybe if I have the balls to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do have a friend that's actually a DJ, so I go clubbing occasionally, but again, since COVID, it's like very few and far between. Every once in a while.
Okay, so any crazy stories from like your partying experience or clubbing, let's per se? Specific memories.
I'm sort of mean when I'm in public, and if somebody approaches me and I'm not interested in talking to them, I will shut you down and sort of like, I'm not gonna roast you, but I'm not particularly nice.
Okay.
So if I'm like in a club, my most recent experience, I remember I was like sort of embarrassed because I felt like maybe I was too mean, but there was a guy that came up to me and he like held out his hand. He's like, "Hi, I'm blah blah blah. What's your name?" And I looked at him and I just said no. I was like, no. And he did a double take and he like blinked and he was like, "What's your name?" And I just no. And he just like literally his hand is still out and he just like turned around and he like walked back to his friends. And I felt a little bit bad for that because I was like, I probably could have just told him my name and like not made him feel absolutely terrible. But I'm not trying to be mean. It's more so that I get anxious and shy. Like I told you, I don't really like to just like talk to people when I first meet them. So I like freeze up and I just feel like I am trying to escape the situation as quickly as possible. So I'll say no or no thank you. And I've had people call me names or say that I'm a bitch, but I like in my head I'm like freaking out because I'm really anxious and I don't want anyone to talk to me.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, literally go talk to my friends. They're drunk, they're dancing, they're having a good time. Like, go talk to them, please. Like, I'm standing in the corner watching them, and it's not because I'm not having fun, it's because I want to make sure everyone comes out okay. So please don't talk to me. That was my most recent experience. As far as like parties and stuff, I don't want to get too like crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of them are probably not YouTube, Twitch
stream friendly.
Yeah, stream friendly. I do have a couple stories which if you ever wanted to hear them, I'll tell you, but maybe not everybody.
Okay. So basically, the premise is band kids go hard, right? That's
Yeah, a
you.
little bit.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, what was your first experience like drinking alcohol in general? Do you remember the first time?
I do remember the first time. Um, I was underage. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell this story though. So
Yeah,
it was in the
you
past,
can.
so I can't be in trouble for it now. Um, but I did drum corps. So you go on tour, you're in tour buses, and pretty much you can audition into it. There's not a minimum age restriction, but there's a maximum age restriction. So you can't perform over the 21. So everyone in that group is 21 and younger. And since you have to audition into it, most of the people there are going to be a little bit older. Typically college age, but you might get a handful of high school students as well. My sister's in the chat, so this will be her first time hearing this. But
Okay.
I first started going on tours when I was 16 years old, so I was very little. Definitely one of, if not the youngest person, that was in the traveling ensemble. And I very distinctly remember this was after our final performance. So we weren't competing anymore. We were done. The season was over. We were in Indianapolis. We performed at Lucas Oil Stadium. We all got into the buses and we're gonna drive all the way back to Oregon. And my friends were all drinking and partying, and some of them are 21 and some of them are 20, and there's a lot of illicit activities that happen. But I don't remember what exactly they gave me. I think it was like a rum and coke or something along those lines. But it was like a 21-year-old gave me this rum and coke, and I was 16 years old, and I was very impressionable. And I don't know if I drank the whole thing, but I remember I felt really good for about 20 minutes. And then they were like, someone needs to stop the bus because she's going to hurl.
Ooh.
So, yeah, that's pretty much how all of my drinking experiences go. Is I'll feel really good for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then the alcohol has to leave my body one way or the other.
Oh, so you threw up your first time.
Oh yeah. I will pretty much throw up if I have any amount of alcohol, except for like I can sip seltzers, so I can have like a Truly or a White Claw or some of that, but it's like I can drink like half a can. It's like that's kind of my tolerance. I don't really drink anymore because I've sort of just learned my lesson that I'm just gonna have a bad time, and you know, most people don't go out thinking that it's gonna be really fun to throw up later that night. So I think the most recent experience that I had drinking was my birthday, when I think my 24th or 25th birthday. My friends in California had never seen me drink because by the time I moved down here, I had learned that I can't do it. So I just never drank in front of them. But they were like, Rachel, it's your birthday. Let me buy you a shot, because that's what people do. And I was like, okay, like, oh, okay, fine. And it was like a really nice whiskey or something. They bought me a shot. And I took it, and they were all super hyped because it was their first time seeing me actually drink something. And then I have photos of me throwing up in the parking lot later that night. One shot.
The memories.
Yeah.
Okay, so what type of drunk would you classify yourself as?
So I have friends that say that you're either a sitter or a walker. So you're either the person that wants to run outside and do crazy things and get into problems and trouble, or you just want to slouch on the couch and fall asleep. I'm probably more of a sloucher. I'm probably more of a sleepy couch sitter, if I had to. But yeah, not really a drinker. I'll participate in other stuff.
Despite not being much of a drinker, what would you say your favorite would be and your least favorite?
I had one of my friend's Midori sours once. I thought that actually tasted pretty good. So I liked that. Like a basic rum and coke is probably fine too, as long as it's mostly coke and not as much rum. Least favorite is anything with vodka.
Okay. Vodka.
Vodka is my enemy.
Gotcha. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about some of your interests. I'm sure I know what you're going to name. There's a few of them, but okay, let's talk about. Give us a top 5 when it comes to anime, movies, and shows. So separate categories, and if you want to include animated movies, you can in either section from anime or movies.
Okay. I was actually thinking about this because I was listening to some of your other podcasts, and I was like, okay, I have to actually think about this. I had a lot of trouble. I had a lot of trouble thinking about TV shows because I mostly just watch a lot of anime. I watch some TV shows, but so I have a list. I did come up with one.
Nice.
So I was like,
Gosh.
I have to be
Did your
prepared
homework.
for this one.
Yeah.
I did a little bit. I was like, I can talk about my life experiences without having to like worry too much about it. But coming up with lists, I think it's easy to like forget something.
Yeah.
When
On
you're
top
put
of
the
your head.
spot.
Mm-hmm.
So my favorite movies: Pride and Prejudice, Tangled from Disney, Whisper of the Heart, which is a Studio Ghibli film, 10 Things I Hate About You with Heath Ledger, and Ip Man with Donnie Yen. Those are my 5 favorite movies.
Nice. Okay.
You get a whole slew of different things there. Ip Man is a kung fu movie. Do you watch kung fu movies, Wilson?
Yeah, I've seen it. For
Okay,
sure.
Let's go. It's such a good movie. It's so good.
I haven't watched the last one, but yeah.
Just anything with Donnie Yen is a hit for me.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite TV shows? The one that I have watched the most is Parks and Rec. I love Amy Poehler. I've probably watched it through maybe 7 or 8 different times. For anybody that wants to watch it that hasn't watched it, please start from season 2. Season 1 is garbage. Season 1. I liked New Girl. I also really liked Squid Game when it came out. I don't usually like things that are kind of like dark, gory, lots of killing, but it was just like from start to finish, Squid Game is a cinematic masterpiece, and I love Hoyeon, who is the Sebyok, the girl. She is amazing, and I have a crush on her. I love her so much. Arcane. I really liked Arcane too. Imagine liking an Imagine Dragons song in 2022. And The Good Place, which I really like things that kind of make you think a little bit. And especially as like a kid that was raised in a Christian household, seeing something depict like a different way that things could go when you die was very, very interesting. Anime is really difficult. I always have a lot of trouble answering this. Top 5. I'm gonna give you top 5, and I'm gonna give you honorable mentions because I have to.
Yeah.
Hunter x Hunter. I love Hunter x Hunter. I read it all and I watched it all as well. It's amazing. Horimiya was also something that I really loved. I also read it all and watched it all. Anime does not do it justice. If you guys like the anime, the manga is so cute. Demon Slayer, read it all, watched it as far as it's gone. I personally prefer the manga to the anime. I wasn't incredibly impressed with the anime. I really liked manga. I like reading about the characters. My favorite is all the little like sidebar random panels that don't make it into the anime. That's my favorite. Fruits Basket, I read that growing up. So in high school and middle school, I read a lot of Fruits Basket. So I was so excited to see the reboot of the anime. It's beautiful. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, I think, is also just a work of art. It's fantastic. And the fact that it's written by a woman, what is not to like about that? Honorable mentions are Kami-sama Kiss, Attack on Titan, Yona of the Dawn, Erased, and Sailor Moon.
Sheesh,
That's
a
like
whole nother
5 more.
5. Let's go. Okay.
Yeah, that's my top 10.
Yeah,
So.
nice. Okay. Favorite song and favorite artist.
Oh, Sophie's saying my mic cuts out every now and then. I'll put it closer to me.
Okay.
Favorite song. I like. It's hard to pick a favorite song, but I do. I would say that probably the song that I listened to the most in the last year was "Cotton Candy" by Spilltab. Favorite artist. I have to pick the top artist. from my Spotify. I think for the past 5 years running, it's been Ariana Grande. So
Okay.
yeah, if I had to pick one.
All right. So I'm sure you're big on boba, right? So go to boba drinks.
So my favorite drink that I have ever made myself or had was a raspberry oolong tea with chia seeds. When you're a boba barista, you sort of just make yourself stuff, and sometimes it's really good, and sometimes it's really terrible. So they actually discontinued this because this was at the boba shop that I used to work at when I was here in California. Raspberry oolong tea with chia seeds. They no longer have the raspberry flavor, and I can't find anywhere else that will make it for me.
Yeah. Okay.
There's or if you like a milk tea, I'm oolong everything. So the Rising Phoenix oolong milk tea from Orobe, which is in Irvine, I think. My go-to. Get oolong milk.
So with that place, just give us like a general top 3 chains or locations then for boba.
So Orobe, I think, has to be my favorite. I just think I'm really big on tea. So a lot of times I'll get my drinks either no sweet or half sweet because bad boba shops, if everything has like an insane amount of sugar, their tea is probably really bad. So the best way to tell if a drink is any good is if you can drink it and like it with zero sugar. That is the best way to tell if it's decent at all. So I like Orobe because you can get it half sweet, no sweet, and the tea holds up. It's so good. And they also make you drink it. So they give it to you and they're like, please taste this. If you hate it, we'll make it for you. So like they will basically keep remaking your drink until you actually like it, which I think is amazing customer service. There's always a 30-minute line outside of Orobe. It's crazy, but next time you're in SoCal, you have to go.
How do you spell it? The name?
Orobe. It's O-R-O and then Bay, B-A-E.
Oh, okay.
It's really good. My tattoo artist actually sent me their very good recommendation. As far as other chains, I guess the drink that I have is from Dragonfly Cafe, which I like it because it's open late and they have seats. And when you're a DGen, you have to have the late open place.
Gotcha, yeah.
But for something that's maybe a little bit more accessible, I like Ding Tea as well. So like that's a little bit more locations and more people know about.
Ding Tea. All right. Talk about your tattoos and piercings, and you could even add like dyeing your hair.
Oh, okay. Cool. I love talking about my tattoos. So I'll start with my piercings.
Sure.
My first. So I have doubles. I can't really show.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to show.
I have my earlobes pierced. I have both of them pierced, and doubles in both. I also have a conch piercing, so like the thicker part of your ear. I have like a really big loop in that one. And then I also have like an upper ear cartilage piercing. I have about 3 piercings in both ears. I also have a nostril piercing here, and I have a septum. Sorry, I'm gonna stick my fingers in, but I have a septum, which pretty much the only reason why I don't have it out normally is because I don't have a piercing that I like that I think looks good yet in it. So
yeah,
that's the only reason why it's not out. I went through all the pain of getting it pierced and then I never show anybody. And then for tattoos, I started getting tattoos when I was 18. So my first tattoo was your very generic song lyrics, classic.
Yeah.
It's Blue Skies Are Calling, which is from the song Blue Skies by Noah and the Whale. I was a depressed little bitch when I was in high school, so I had to get the song lyrics from a song that kind of helped me not be so depressed. So it's that. My second tattoo was this shoulder. I'm like, which one? I never see it. It says Amor Fati, which is Latin, and there's a little moon guy. He's really cute. It means love of fate in Latin. And it's sort of just the perspective that everything that happens to you happens for a reason. And you can either shake your fist at the air and be really upset that it happened, or you can learn to love it for what it is and where it has led you. And I felt like that was just a really cool sentiment, and it's something that I sort of try to embrace, is that you can't really control everything that happens to you, but you can control the way that you feel about it. Third tattoo was this lovely lady, which is not a panther, not a jaguar. It is a lioness. And I designed it, so it's very much one of my favorite tattoos.
Oh, wow, self-designed.
Yeah, I love designing stuff. But for people that know about the way that lion packs, lion prides operate, a lot of people get lion tattoos because it's a symbol of strength. But if you know more about the actual dynamics of the lion pride, the lionesses are the ones that do the killing, do the hunting, do the raising. And actually, if they think that the lion is doing like a shit job, they'll kick him out, find another one. So I was like, wow, they're just like the boss ass bitches of the animal kingdom, and I want that energy. Kind of sucks that everyone just thinks it's like a jaguar or something, but I know.
You know what it is, yeah.
I know what it is. I have another one. I probably won't show you because it's my side boob. But it's a marigold, and it is one of my best friends. Our best friend's song is "Marigold" by Mother Falcon. Very cute song. So technically 2 song tattoos. But yeah, that's there. And then this, I have to sit up a little bit. But this is my half sleeve. This is probably my most favorite thing that I own on my body. Studio Ghibli. So for people that know Hayao Miyazaki and his work, I also have like a Studio Ghibli couch back here. So I have like Haku and Kiki's, and you can't really see them, but I have like art prints up there that are also Studio Ghibli. But I love all of the movies so much that I felt like I just wanted to put it on my body. So the art technically belongs to Miyazaki, but I'm the one that designed it and like formatted it. So I established the placement of where everything was going to go, so everything is very intentional, and I placed it there. So we have Howl's Moving Castle here. We have Spirited Away. We have Chihiro and Haku. We have a Totoro here. We have one of the robots. We have, this is from Whisper of the Heart, which is one of my favorite movies. We have the Kodamas, which are forest spirits. We have Princess Mononoke and Moro, the wolf. We have Calcifer, who is the fire demon from Howl's Moving Castle. And we have Shitan Pazu from La Pieta in the Sky. And I do eventually want this to go all the way down to my wrist, maybe my hand. But tattoos are very expensive, so we're working on it. And my last one is the one I got most recently. Can't really see it. It's kind of not focusing, but it's Sailor Mars from Sailor Moon. And my sister Sophie, she came down in January, and for her birthday / Christmas, I said I would pay for her. So she has a Sailor Moon, and I have a Sailor Mars, and they're in the same spot on the elbow.
Dang, that is awesome.
Yeah, that's all of it. I think you also mentioned my hair.
Yeah.
So I think people were saying earlier, and I've said before, that we kind of have matching hair colors, but I know you started off red and it faded out to pink, right?
Yeah.
I always wanted to be pink. And I think I've said in your chat before that I have had blue hair and I've had like purple lavender hair. I started dyeing my hair when I was in high school, and it just sort of slowly got lighter. So it started dyeing it brown and then bleaching it and bleaching it. And I was platinum about 4 years ago. I was like pretty blonde all the way to my root. And then because my hair is so light, I was like, well, I might as well start putting some fun colors into it. And the color that I enjoy the most is the pink so far. So I think this is the longest that I've had a color that wasn't blonde. And actually, I just had a consultation to go get some extensions because I just want to have long pink hair. I wish my hair grew out of my head pink, but dyeing your hair when you're Asian is so hard. It's so hard on your hair.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's the story of all of that. Thank you. Just curious, how did your parents react to all these, like the piercings, tats, hair dye? Like, did they have a say?
They definitely had a lot to say. I'm the first person in my family, I think, probably to get this amount done. I remember when I pierced my nose, my dad said, if you wanted another hole in your head, you could have just asked me, and I would have done it for you. Which I was like, all right, Dad, okay.
Holy.
I don't think he's given my little sisters the same amount of grief, but I was the first one to do it.
Yeah.
As far as tattoos, they don't get it. They don't know why people do them. But my mom was not new to them. Like growing up in Malaysia, there was a lot of tribal tattoos. A lot of people from different tribes or clans with tattoos that denote where they're from. So it like visually was not something that was new to her. She people with a lot of tattoos. But to her, she was also just kind of like, I don't know why you would get it if it's not like culturally significant to you that way. So they kind of give like little side comments about it. Like every time I get a new one, they're like, "That's the last one, right?" And I'm like, "For now." But yeah, it also helps that my little sister gets tattoos and she lives with them, so she gets all the grief because she lives with them. But I moved out pretty much as soon as I could, so they can tell me how they feel when I see them in person, but I think they're more focused on trying to enjoy the time that we have together. So far I have dodged the scathing comments.
Got it. All right. And so another thing that you mentioned earlier that I wanted to hear about is you said you're the type of person that will say what you gotta say, right? And you stand for things like that, whatever comes to mind. So talk about some of the protests that you've been a part of and how that experience has been.
So the first protest that I ever went to was when I was in high school. They were cutting the arts funding for the school. I've talked a lot about how I was involved in the arts. So I remember going to City Hall, and I think I made it on the news because I had a poster that said, like, I think I got it off the internet, but it said, "Earth without art is just eh." And I was very proud of that. So I don't remember what actually came of that. I don't think we actually got the funding. I think they still ended up cutting it, but it was very exciting to be there. For most recently, I would say the BLM protests that happened a couple years ago at the start of the pandemic. I participated in a lot of the ones that happened in the area. I even drove, I was living closer to San Diego at the time, but I would drive up to LA, Orange County, and meet up with friends, and we would do marches and protests. And I was part of like different Facebook groups, like different community outreach, and just sort of trying to spread awareness. There's a program that I was a part of that I really desperately wanted them to say more and like educate more people about what was happening and get the conversation going. And I like sort of got reprimanded because I was like, no, it's really important that we talk about this. We have to talk about this. And they were like, we're a music group. Why are we going to say something about it? And I was like, because you have people in your groups that are not white that this affects. So I, in staff meetings, was very vocal about what I felt like we needed to talk about and the direction that we needed to go. Not everybody agreed with me, but that's fine. You don't have to. I know that I'm right. So that's probably the most recent. I do like little bits here and there where I will donate, like most recently to Ukraine with everything that's been going on. And I'll try to read and educate. I think something that's just as important when it comes to activism is knowing when to stand down and knowing when you don't know enough, and making space for the voices that are really important. So, especially with some of what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, I know that I'm not the most knowledgeable. I'm not the person that's being most affected. So, the most important thing for me right now is amplifying the voices that need to be heard, donating money to help those voices be heard. And yeah, that's really important to me.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, as of now, what are your goals and aspirations in life?
My goals, well, so some short-term goals. At my work, I like what I do. I work in talent acquisition, but I don't like being on the phone that much. I really like talking to random people, if I don't have to. So I've been discussing moving more into the data analytics portion of human resources. So more report pulling, analyzing data, making recommendations, more of like the problem solving. So that's sort of the next move that I think I want to make career wise, is get more into the data analytics portion of human resources. I would like to own a house someday. I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm making the most amount of money that I've ever made in my life. So like this is the first time that I've ever been able to actually like sort of think about something like that, like owning a house. Except in California, it's absolutely bonkers crazy how expensive houses are. So I've been sort of thinking potentially like maybe moving elsewhere and buying a location or a house somewhere else where it's more affordable, but that's sort of far off. I don't know. I also want to expand my Twitch. That's sort of a goal that I have. Being less afraid to post publicly. I think. I have a TikTok, and my TikToks are relatively cringy, and I'm just so afraid to post. Like, it might not seem like I'm afraid, but I really am before I post things.
Yeah.
But when I see like other people that inspire me, they're people that just see things that they want to do and they sort of do it, and they don't let the cringe affect them. And I think I just get so caught up in being really worried about how, if I post this, is it gonna flop? Are people gonna like this? Are people gonna laugh at me? And so I just end up not posting at all. So I kind of want to grow past that. I have a couple ideas for my Twitch. You actually inspired me because I've been wanting to do a podcast for a while. And I see you doing your podcast, and I'm like, I think I'm just overthinking it. I think I just kind of need to do it and figure it out, because otherwise I'm just gonna never ever do it. Like, I've been wanting to do it for years now, and I just don't, because I'm afraid of messing it up. So another short into long-term goal is I want to sort of grow my platforms, I guess. And just stop being so afraid.
For sure. Okay, that was goals and aspirations. So, what traveling have you done so far, and where would you like to go in the future?
So, I have traveled all across the United States because I did the touring and doing different performances. So, different states that I visited: Washington, Utah, Nebraska, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Georgia, all along the East Coast, the Carolinas, New York, Philadelphia, everywhere, a lot of places. All of the flyover states that a lot of people don't really visit.
Yeah.
So also spent some time in Texas. That's not a flyover state. It's kind of nice. Because I lived in the Pacific Northwest, it was pretty easy to drive up to Canada. I have family in Vancouver, BC, so we would go there pretty often, like Richmond, Surrey area. And hang out with family. I haven't been since the pandemic, but I think 2019 I spent my Thanksgiving in Canada. I do really like it there. I have been to China. I went to Dalian, which is a coastal city. I've been to Beijing. I've been to Shanghai and Xi'an. I have also been to France, and I have been to England. So I visited Paris and I visited London. And most recently, I went to Hawaii, which is also a state, but it sort of felt like it wasn't. And when I graduated college, my mom took me to go visit family in Kota Kinabalu, Malaysia, which is the village.
Oh, sorry, you cut off at the end?
Oh, I've been to Kota Kinabalu, Malaysia, which is where my mom is from, and that's where she grew up.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Sort of a post-college celebratory sort of thing. I went to go visit family and friends and see where my mom grew up.
Yeah, what were your thoughts about where your mom grew up? Like, how different is it from what you imagined?
It's very different. It is the main religion in Malaysia is Islam, so there's a lot of women that are all covered up. So when I showed up and I had different colored hair and I had a lot of tattoos, and I'm not tall. Like, I'm 5'5", but I'm tall compared to a lot of other Asians. So even just wearing like shoes with a slight platform, there's like a picture of me at like a market in Malaysia, and I'm taller than everybody else there. Like, and it's probably the one and only time that I'm ever gonna be tall like that, because
Yeah.
a 5'5" is not tall. So yeah, I just was towering over everybody. But yeah, it's a second world country, so there's a lot of infrastructure that needs some work. My mom was telling me about, different political aspects of Malaysia that are maybe a little bit unsavory, but overall, my favorite thing about traveling is eating the local food and visiting markets and seeing like all the local vendors and what they're making and selling. And there's a lot of different markets and a lot of good places to eat in Malaysia, so I really enjoyed it, and it's nice to immerse yourself in culture.
Yeah. Nice, love that. Out of curiosity, what would you say is the most underrated state or location you've been to? Since you mentioned, like, oh, you went to a lot of the flyover states. Yeah.
Forest City, Iowa. It is the home to the drum corps that I marched with, which is, it's an independent competitive organization. Forest City, Iowa is where we spent the most of our rehearsal time. So it's like a tiny little like city in the middle of Iowa. It's like all white people, but it's like very cute. There's a coffee shop that my friends and I would walk over to, so it's like funny. Like, I don't know if I would tell somebody to visit there for a vacation.
Yeah.
Probably go somewhere else. But out of all the random places that I have nostalgia and like a certain amount of longing for, it would be Forest City, Iowa.
Okay. Cool.
Oh, we have the Forest City stats.
Yes, all right.
It's teeny tiny.
So now we're gonna get into more like heavier, deeper topics. So whatever you're comfortable with, like talking about, all right? So the first topic has to deal with relationships and heartbreak. So similar to how I told you about like your work experiences, you could go with the very first one, whatever you consider as a relationship, like how you got into it. Give us an overview up until where you're at today.
Okay. So I dated people in middle school, but we just held hands. So I don't know if I would really consider them. My first serious relationship, actually, I told you that I started playing percussion because I had a crush on a guy.
Yeah.
I ended up dating him, so
Oh, shoot.
my plan worked. My plan worked. I'm very crafty. Um, uh, I don't know how many names I want to give, but his name is Jay. I'll just Jay. Um,
Okay.
we dated on and off for like 2 to 3 years, which in high school was like really important. It was a lot. I think I everyone fantasizes about high school sweethearts, and I think I wanted that at the time. But now that I'm older and I'm like, why would I want to only date one person for my entire life? Like, I know that it works for some people, but I'm really happy that I didn't end up with him because he kind of sucks. So you
Okay.
don't see it. You don't see it when you're in the relationship, but then you kind of sit back and you're like, oh, he wasn't really nice to me, and he didn't pay attention to me, and he flirted with a lot of other girls. Like, why did I excuse that? I don't know, but yeah. So that came and went. I dated another guy with a J name. I should know better. Stay away from J names. But we dated for about also 2 to 3 years. He was also another percussionist that I met. So I have a type, I guess. But
Okay.
yeah, he was also the same, just kind of lied to me. And this was also like, we were like 17, 18, 19 at the time. It's a very like formative part of your life. And he would just lie to me about things that he was doing and kind of gaslight me. So eventually broke up.
Yeah.
Dated another percussionist. He was a C name, so a little different. And he broke up with me. I think the other times I broke up with them, but he broke up with me. And then he ended up stealing money from one of my best friends. So, you know, I dodged a bullet. She went to off to six, and he filtered money out of her account into his. So
She went off to what?
my friend went off to basic, like camp.
Oh, okay.
And he was her roommate,
Mm-hmm.
and so he could pretty much do whatever he wanted with her stuff because she was in boot camp, and found her bank records and stole her money, the money that she was making in boot camp. And she didn't have her phone. You couldn't see what was happening. But that was after we broke up, so
Yeah.
like I said, I dodged a bullet there. After that, I dated a girl.
Okay.
M.
Mm-hmm.
She was really nice. I don't know. It was my first time dating someone off of a social media app.
Was this in college, like, still, or?
Yes, this was in college. So
Okay.
this was more like 20s, 21 time.
Okay.
Prior to 21, I think I was more 20s. Just dated for a little bit, but didn't really connect on things. She was really nice, didn't really have a problem with it, but I just ended up breaking up with her.
Mm-hmm.
After not too long, just I wasn't super emotionally attached. I've had on and off again things with different girls. Dated another guy with a G name. We dated for a month. He got really drunk and told me that he loved me after that month. And I did not feel the same way, so I broke up with him right after that. I felt a little bit bad about that one.
Mm-hmm.
But wasn't the vibe. Don't get really drunk and tell someone that you love them the first time that you do it. Probably don't do that. I don't know. Maybe it'll work for you. I don't know.
Yeah.
And now I'm in the relationship that I'm currently in. His name is David, and he's been in your chat. He's the Shiva.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've been dating for just over 4 years now, so it's been quite a while, and he's just my best friend, and he's sitting next to me right now playing Valorant. So yeah.
Yeah, I heard someone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you hear some click clacking right now, he's playing Valorant.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's comping right now, but yeah, he's my best friend. I met him when I moved down to California. He's also a percussionist, so I did return back to my roots.
Ooh.
But,
Okay.
I don't know, he's really nice. He's probably the first person that has like met me where I'm at. I think the sort of like running thing with a lot of my formative relationships was that I felt like I gave myself 100% and they sort of held me at arm's length and didn't care about me as much. I was always the giver and not the receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But this was sort of the first time that I had someone that actually cared about me at all and showed it. And like when we have arguments, we don't just like sit on it or get super angry. Sometimes we get angry, but for the most part, we're trying to see where the other person is coming from and meet each other in the middle. And I think that that's one of the most important things that has probably ever happened to me in a relationship
Mm-hmm.
is having somebody that actually just gives a fuck.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for the overview.
Yeah.
Okay, so specific questions in regards to that. I would have asked you like what your general type is. What else do you have?
Um,
Type of people you're into.
So I know it seems like, oh, Rachel dates a lot of musicians, and I do, but I think the most important thing from that is just that they really care about something.
Yeah.
I think like somebody that has a passion and puts a lot of time and effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that, you know, I think it's fine. I think it's fine to be searching for yourself. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm most attracted to people that have a drive and a dedication to something. And like watching someone just be really good at something, it's hot. Like it's just cool. It's cool to watch somebody be really skilled at what they love to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't have to be music. It just so happens that I surround myself with musicians. You could be a really good, I don't know, sports person or be really good at games or even whatever your career is. I think the most important thing to me is ambition and drive. I don't have a physical type. Everyone that I've dated has looked very different from each other, and I like girls, so they don't even. I don't know. I've always said that I'm more attracted to a vibe than to anything else. So if you, I don't know, are cool to hang out with, which sounds very generic, but yeah, you don't really have to look a certain way. I've dated people who are shorter than me, people way taller than me, people that are my height, different ethnicities. So that doesn't matter to me. It's more just like, are you cool? Are you nice to the people that I care about? Do you have a passion? Do you have a drive? Do you want to go somewhere in life? Does that align with what I want to do? So
Okay. And based on your experiences, what would you say? What advice can you give? Like general relationship advice, or talk about things you've learned from your previous.
if you can't be yourself, it's not worth it. If you have to hide parts of yourself, do you want to do that for the rest of your life? Probably not. Um, and find someone that meets you where you are. If you have to beg somebody to care about you, which I found myself doing in some of my earlier relationships, where I would just beg for them to care a little bit, it's not worth it either. Like find someone that loves you really and doesn't make you work for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the red flags you've encountered,
Ooh.
or biggest red flags in general to you.
Biggest red flags. People that are inflexible or can't meet in the middle. That's kind of about anything. So, like if you are, I don't know, maybe you are a certain religion. I don't want to give any specifics, but if that's your religion, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that you should be willing, like if you're interested in someone romantically, you should be willing to investigate them and where they're at religious, spiritually, right? Like I think that that only makes sense. If you're just like, no, you have to come to where I'm at, and if you don't bend to that, then it won't work. Then I'm like, yeah, it's not going to work because you're inflexible and you're not willing to open your perspective at all, you know, because everyone is intelligent, everyone came to their own conclusions. somehow along the course of their life through their life experiences. And if you're just going to discount that and say, no, you have to see where I'm coming from or else, then yeah, you probably kind of suck a little bit. Or I think just a generic red flag is people that, if they say like, oh, you're just not like other girls, if there's someone that says all of their other exes were crazy, they were probably the crazy one. And if there's somebody that can't treat service workers nicely, or if they say that it's unskilled labor, I don't know. You try working at Starbucks in the middle of a rush, you're probably not going to have a good time. It's definitely skilled. Generic.
Gotcha.
Everyone is intelligent. To a point, Cody.
Okay. So I like to ask or talk about this briefly and just to see how everyone's doing. But how would you say, how are you doing mentally as of now?
I'm probably doing the best that ever have.
Mm-hmm.
I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder when I was in high school, and also depression as well. And so I don't know how like super into that I want to talk about, but
Yeah.
it's you know it's not something that ever really goes away. It's once you have it, and you kind of figure out how to deal with it. So I would say probably more than my depression. I've mostly like I'll have depressive episodes, but it's nothing life-threatening anymore.
Yeah.
But I do struggle with anxiety, and really the only way I kind of run face first into it. So I've told you that I kind of like to take risks. All of the risks that I take are anxiety and stress-inducing, and I question myself constantly. But you can only get better at facing them if you sort of exposure therapy and do it a lot. And I think I've also said that I'm not very good at saying no either, but that also means that I end up trying a lot of different things, whether or not that makes me happy.
Yeah.
So that's a really long way to say that I think I've come to manage where I'm at. I'm still trying to find a therapist because I think everybody needs a therapist. I think I should see one. But you know, insurance is a bitch, so we're still working on that.
Okay, and for you specifically, when you felt like you were at your lowest points in life, right? How did you just get through it all? Like, climb out of it? So this is kind of like another advice question.
I had unhealthy and healthy ways of coping with it. Yeah, I don't know how much you want on your podcast.
It's as much as you're comfortable talking about. It's your time.
So, I guess a trigger warning for self-harm is that, yeah, I used to. Something that I did a lot when I was in high school and early college. And it's still like an urge that comes, like I said, it doesn't really go away. It's not something that stops. And I think that it sort of manifests itself in other physically destructive behavior. So maybe if it's not like harming myself, I don't know. There's other ways that it manifests, I think. But it's mostly come to a point where it's mitigated and I don't really struggle with it as much. Healthier ways that I have dealt with my mental health are I had a Tumblr when I was growing up. I think a lot of people, almost everybody, had a Tumblr. So it was sort of treated as my own personal diary. I'm a big fan of diaries and note-taking and journaling my thoughts and feelings. So I still have it. I guess if you search really hard, you could probably find my Tumblr. It's very cringe and very sad, so I would not suggest that anyone looks at it. But I sort of have kept it up for nostalgic purposes because it documents where I was at that time in my life. I just wrote a lot about what I was feeling, everything that I was feeling. And I felt like it helps externalize what I was going through. Just by writing it down, you get a better grasp on, you know, if you're sad, why am I sad? So I was writing down more of that. And being a musician has also helped too. Because, if you've ever watched a live music performance, you know that it can go really hard and really crazy sometimes. So that's another way to just sort of push all of your feelings outwards and not have it wrapped up in your tiny little body anymore. So really throwing myself into performance and digging into whatever made me happy and just sort of like honing in on blinders on focusing on things that I knew gave me some respite, help. I don't know if that helps for everybody, but just I think surrounding yourself with people and knowing that you can turn to your friends, and not closing yourself off. I think that's something that a lot of people do in my case, or if you have anxiety or depression, it's really easy to feel like you're a burden on others and to not want to talk to others. But I think if you kind of run the other way, run into your friends and let them be there for you, don't take advantage of their niceness, but let them be there for you, let them be your friends. You'll probably turn out okay.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that subject. And lastly, in this kind of like related topic, you mentioned that COVID has affected your social battery. How else has COVID affected you in general?
Well, so I work at a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So the first couple months of the pandemic was sort of, I felt like it just passed in a blur because I would wake up and my professional life, COVID, and then my personal life, COVID. So there wasn't really a time when I could kind of just like not think about it. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel lucky though because I haven't lost any friends or family to it. So I know that I am very blessed because not a lot of people have been quite so lucky, and it's really difficult here. I have had friends that have like permanently lost other senses, like where they can't smell or things smell bad to them when they should smell good. But I just have been really lucky so far, and I know that I've been really blessed because I didn't lose my job. I work in healthcare, so it was more or less very stable at the time. They weren't gonna lay anyone off because they needed as many hands on deck as possible. It did affect my social life, but I have like a really strong core group of friends that we made a point to like FaceTime each other as often as we could. One of my friends I have a lot of friends in the military, but one of my friends was in boot camp at the same time as the pandemic, and we would write letters back and forth to make sure that she was doing okay. So just a lot of reaching out, and then also found Twitch in the middle of the pandemic. So it's a way to build a community and hang out and meet a lot of really cool people without the fear of anything happening because you're in a physical space with them.
Okay, that was COVID talk. Do you need another break before we finish things off?
I do have to pee.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. No worries. Yeah, do your thing. What's up, everybody? Hi, Icene. Thanks for dropping by. Kratska, have a wonderful night. Okay, what's good? What's good? We stand rage. Heck yes. Oh, you have anxiety too. Hopefully you're able to cope with it, Angel. Hoping for the best. And how's your wrist? Is your wrist okay? Bacon, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. I enjoy doing podcasts because I do learn a lot about people's experiences, because everyone lives different lives, Different things happen. How you get so cute? I don't even know what you're talking about, okay? Have you seen yourself, though? Hello, Kez! Hi, Kez. Thanks for tuning in. What's up? Good afternoon, Kez. Thank you, Kushi. Thank you, thank you. Wrist is getting better. That's good. I feel like I need to focus on my wrist because it's been cracking like every day. Kez, I hope you're excited for the weekend. Thank you so much for participating too in the talent show. Same for you, Kay and Angel. Thank you guys. We got a few of you guys in chat right now, and that's really nice. What I gotta do to get like you? I don't know. Nah, Kay. You're perfect just the way you are, alright? That's all I gotta say. Oh, you did send me a DM. Yes, 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 yes. I was gonna try to switch the schedule for you, so no worries. If you send me something else, then I'll double check, but I'll make sure to take a look after this. Wait, you got injured recently though? Oh, snap. Hopefully it wasn't severe, because, uh-oh. When I heard Malaysia, I'm like, wait, it's me. I'm in Malaysia. That is actually crazy. The time zone difference, Cushy. Huge. But I'm really, really glad that you guys like and appreciate like these type of, I don't know, like just the podcast in general. It's something that I've always wanted to do back then, and I'm glad that I took the opportunity to make this happen because I've learned so much, and I feel like it's a great way to get to know people better, other than to see them streaming and doing their own thing. Like, sometimes you just get, you know, generic casual conversations, which aren't bad, but this is like a platform to allow people to say other things about themselves that you may not know from just stumbling across their streams for the first time or so. Yeah, so it's like more intimate, and it's definitely a lot closer in regards to connection. Almost 12 p.m. lunchtime. Wait a second, you're only 14 hours ahead? Wait, how many hours are you ahead of me? It's like 10:17 p.m. for me. Family don't... Oh, they don't like tattoos? Yeah, a lot of families don't. It's all good. I mean, people have their opinions on it for sure. Sorry for making you switch it, because I'm gonna get a checkup around that time. Wait, so what time? You told me what time you preferred, right? And it's okay. I mentioned that the schedule is flexible for the most part, so I can make that change for you guys. All good, but just glad that you are willing to do it. So we do have a talent show. Want you guys to know. Exclamation talent show to see the poster or flyer. And then we have exclamation schedule just to see the lineup, which will change in a little bit. So yeah, feel free to utilize it or to check it out. Remember, Saturday, 7 p.m. PST is the start time. Bandy, what are you talking about? Bandy, what are you up to, man? I think around 14 hours. I'm in India. Oh, that's why. That's why. I was confused because I always thought that like Malaysia was about 15 hours like ahead. Something close to that. Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back. Everything good?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Gonna jump right back or jump right into it again, guys. Thanks for being here, chat. So we're gonna talk about the social media aspects of your life. Aside from Twitch, what platforms are you currently using? I know you mentioned TikTok briefly, but go ahead.
Yes, so I do have a TikTok. I post infrequently. I'll have spurts. I have an Instagram as well. I don't really post like feed photos, but I update my story pretty frequently. And I also have a Twitter. I think that is it. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter.
Okay. There you go. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You recently also changed your Instagram handle, right? I know you were talking about that.
Yeah, I originally had it as my first and last name, and it's relatively of like common name. There's a lot of other people, but I think if I really want to kind of focus on growth, it for me, I felt like it was maybe important that my last name wasn't out there. Um, but I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna get into the bulk of it. Twitch, huge. You briefly mentioned how your sisters had an influence of getting you into Twitch. So talk about like the whole thought process and how you actually got started with streaming.
So it was pretty interesting because I have seen some of my other friends start streaming with some success for others and maybe not as much for other people. Like I saw a lot of people start and then never ever stream again. So
Mhm.
various instances of success. Um, and I created a Twitch initially just to follow my friends that started them, but I didn't even really watch them because I didn't really understand Twitch. I watched some like live streams on YouTube, but as a platform, Twitch about like 2 years ago was pretty foreign to me.
Mhm.
Um, but my boyfriend always told me that he felt like I would be good at streaming or that he thinks it would be fun to watch me do it. But I think I mentioned at the very top of the show that I had like a dinosaur computer. I got into a really bad car accident in 2019, and I
Mm.
had a MacBook at the time, which may have sustained itself for like very basic streaming. But it got completely obliterated in the car accident. So I was using like an old work laptop of my dad's that was like this thick, it's super heavy, and it could pretty much just like write essays because I was finishing college at the time.
Mhm.
So I didn't have the tools that I needed really to get started. But my little sister started streaming. She bought a pre-built, so Sophie XEL. She started streaming, and I just thought it was so cute to watch her. And actually, even before she started streaming, my other sister, who her at is Right Kit Katie, she actually started streaming before both of us, and it was just cute. And I don't live with my sisters, so I thought it was so much fun to watch them play games and sort of imagine that I'm playing games with them or hanging out with them. And since I don't live with them, it was sort of the next best thing. Um, and then my boyfriend is amazing, and I had a lot of like a long laundry list of things that I wanted for my PC.
Yeah.
But they're expensive, so I just kind of didn't really think it was ever going to happen, and I was totally fine just playing really laggy League on my laptop.
Mhm.
And then finally, my boyfriend was like, "Okay, I've done all the calculations, and we can build you your dream PC for like $1,400 or something like that." And I was like, "That's crazy!" So he started buying all the parts and shipped them to my parents in Oregon to avoid sales tax. Um, and we like took a road trip up to visit them, put all the PC parts in the back of my car, and like drove back down, and then built my PC. And it's really small, so anybody that sees my PC for the first time is like, "That's tiny PC." It's very small, but once I had it, I was like, "Well, there's nothing stopping me now," and I started streaming.
Nice. Love the story of how it all got started.
Yes,
Okay,
tax evasion.
so how'd you come up with your name for Twitch?
Um, they might have actually briefly seen her. Oh, can you come here? Okay, no, she's chasing a piece of garbage on the ground. I have an orange cat, and I've had her since basically since I moved out of my parents' house.
Mhm.
She's been with me for all of the bumpiest parts of my life. Her name is Monica because I went through a friends phase. So I'm Rachel. She's Monica. If you watched it. Um,
Mhm.
she is, probably the biggest constant in my life, and she's very fat. And I think maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, it was like on Twitter or on Tumblr. I saw it was a photo that it was just a really fat, chonkin cat, and the caption was just, and I
Chumby?
was like, that's so cute. Like, it's just like a cute way to just say that this cat is like a chonker. So I started referring to Monica, my cat, as my chumbyGal, and she has a lot of other nicknames, but that's kind of the one that stuck. She's my chumbyGal. She's my chumby queen. She's very thick and large. And so I sort of co-opted her name, and I kind of stole it from her, and it just became me as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Eating garbage right now. Stop.
So as of now, what's your current categories that you're streaming and your schedule?
So my schedule, I work full time and I also teach, as I mentioned. So I teach on the weekends and on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I work full time, 8:30 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much my only free time is Tuesdays, Thursdays, and sometimes like Sunday evenings. So I stream Tuesdays and Thursdays evenings, DGen hours. I usually start around 10 p.m. PST. And what I stream, I'm a variety streamer. So I do just chatting. I do Valorant. I do some League. I do some TFT. If there's a game that I think looks particularly interesting, I'll download it and play it. I'm gonna shout out Cody because he helped me buy Pokemon Arceus, which I still need to play more of. And he also threatened to riot if I didn't shout him out. So go, Cody, don't riot anymore. And yeah, I don't know, just anything that looks interesting. I played some Lost Ark recently. I think that's when you rated me. I was playing Lost Ark.
Ah, yeah, making your character.
Yeah. It
Yeah, I
took me
remember
like
that.
an hour and a half.
Okay, so talk about your day ones when you started streaming and like are they still here supporting? What's happening?
So day ones, my boyfriend, Shiba, he helps me. He is my tech guy. If I'm ever having a problem, I probably yell for him to please help me. My little sister, she's much more tech savvy than I am. Sophie, she helped me set up my OBS because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Chris is also somebody that's been here since the beginning. Christy Bacon. Let's see. I'm still relatively new, so I haven't had a lot of time for people to like find me and leave me yet. But like some of my best friends on the platform are also like Oni Jans and Excalibur, who I know IRL, and we're really good friends. And then Noodles and Rice TV, he might have stopped by, I don't know. Yeah, those are some people that I've known them for a while.
Awesome. Do you have any favorite memories so far from Twitch, like your whole experience?
Oh, there was one day that just left me glowing. I had Oni Jans and Excalibur, so Janice and Kales. They came over, and our goal was to do a cookie baking stream. We like wanted to bake cookies on stream. And while we were buying the ingredients to cookies, we also decided to do like a spur of the moment Secret Santa. So we were like, okay, we have 15 minutes. We're all in Target. We're gonna go run and find something. Like the limit is $15. We're gonna buy something for each other. And we all streamed it. I think this was in December, early December, and yeah, I got to do like a stream with two people that I love very much, and there's some clips from it, but it was very chaotic. We were trying to bake like 5 different types of cookies, and I don't have a working oven. I have a toaster oven, so you could only fit like 10 cookies at a time. So we had like 5 times the amount of like cookie dough and a tiny toaster. So it took like 2 hours, I think, to bake what we wanted to bake. And it was like a mukbang, Secret Santa, baking, cookie chaos stream all in one. And I also got like a really huge raid from Wasabi Cat, the streamer. And that was a lot of fun too. And I don't know, it was chaos and it was fun. And streaming with other people is incredibly nice because you're not on the spot to be like entertaining 100% of the time. Like I just got to pass it off to Jan and Kales, and they're incredible streamers, and they got to, I got to watch them do their thing and be amazing and fantastic. And I don't know, when they went home that night, I just remember like I was like flushed and happy and excited, and I think it's the most fun that I've ever had.
Nice. Lovely memory. Okay. Have you, other than those people you've mentioned, have you done any of like your own Twitch meetups yet?
Had a little one in Little Tokyo. I met up with almost everybody that I've met in person has ended up being really nice, and I've gotten super close to them. So I met, his name is DJing in, we went to Little Tokyo. I met him. I met, her name is Anime. She's cracked at Valorant. I met her sister Shirley. I think her name is Panda Hime. And I also met Jerry, who's one of my mods now, Noodles and Rice TV. That's sort of a meetup that we had between us. Yeah, and then I met Jan and Kales, and they're super nice. The first time we met, we went to Korean barbecue, which is what's not to like about Korean barbecue and cute girls. Yeah, that's about it. Hopefully as I continue streaming, I'll continue to meet more people and make more friends.
Yeah. So speaking on that and what you've already mentioned briefly, what specific goals do you have for Twitch?
So I mentioned before that you inspired me to go full send on my podcast. So that is something that's in the works. My brother is a musician, so I actually already asked him to write me a podcast jingle, and he sent it to me this morning, and it's really, really cute. So I'm already super excited. So that's sort of in the works. I think I want to start hosting a podcast. So thank you for your inspiration. I don't know. I have taken a lot of different hiatuses from streaming just because I travel and life things very frequently. So it's only sort of recently that I've started streaming and having a schedule, and I hold myself accountable because I've set the schedule every single week. So I'm always like, okay, this is what to expect. This is what's happening, you guys. And so I guess a short-term, long-term goal is to just keep that schedule and be really consistent so people know when I'm live.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it'd be nice to be partnered, but the most important thing to me is to just have a community of people that are cool to hang out with and want to talk to me and spend time with me.
Okay, so with your experience on Twitch so far, what would you say the pros and cons are?
Pros are that it forces me to confront my anxiety head on and just sing. I get anxious before I press start streaming every time, every single day.
Relatable.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably everybody does to some extent. So pros are that it kind of forces me to, again, exposure therapy, just be somebody online. I've gotten to network, I guess. I don't really like calling it networking because it sort of feels like I'm just using people, but I have gotten to just meet so many people from all sorts of different walks of life, which I guess is part of why you do this podcast, because then you can just talk to people and learn what's going on behind the curtain.
Yeah.
So I love it when people, like, even if they come into my chat and they never talk to me ever again, if they're just there once and I get to see like a little bit into the day. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it my Discord that's pinging? Can you hear it?
I don't hear anything.
Okay, then it's just as long as it's not bothering else.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, getting to just meet different people and try something new, get moderately better at some games. Maybe the cons are I don't always know when to draw the line, I guess, and like not be available to people. I don't mind it when people come and talk to me about their lives or things that are bothering them,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think that sometimes people take advantage of that availability and they'll message me at odd hours and tell me like really, really, really deep things.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you emotion dump on people without prepping them first, like I think the preparation is the most important. Like asking them, "Are you okay with me sharing this?" and
Mm-hmm.
having them give you the okay is really important. And I think when you're somebody that's available on a platform online, people sort of forget that you get exhausted and you have boundaries too.
Yeah.
And they just see you as someone that's available for anything at their beck and call. And I wouldn't say that I'm a people pleaser, but I don't like saying no. So I have a hard time telling people like actually I really am not mentally ready to deal with everything that you just told me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the con is that sometimes I just get drained a little bit and I have to figure out a healthy.
Oh, you're cutting out. Sorry. Last part.
Oh, I said a con would be just that I get drained and I have to find a healthy way to establish boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Speaking of other potential cons, have you ever dealt with any form of like trolls or hate on Twitch so far?
Actually, I think it was. Hey, cut it out. Scratching. Kind of.
Yeah.
Culprit. Actually, I think my most recent stream, my sister caught it for me, but there were people that just, I think it was like 4 or 5 people that just hopped into my chat and just started saying really mean things about the way that I look or how I was playing in the game and using racial slurs.
Wow.
I was really lucky. I have some amazing mods, so they kind of caught it before it became a big thing that really blew up. But yeah, I think even if you're just posting anywhere, you kind of just have to be prepared. That's the most recent thing. I think it was literally like my most recent stream. But
Mm-hmm.
oh, there she is. She's graced you with her presence. It's the chumbyGal herself. Yeah, it hasn't been crazy. It's not all the time, but yeah, literally like a stream ago or 2 streams ago.
Wow. Okay. So, how do your parents feel about you streaming and your sisters?
I mean, I know they have a lot of opinions about my youngest sister, Sophie, because I say I do DGen hours. She does hours. Like, I still have a job that I have to wake up for. Yeah. Also, they live in the same house, so
Yeah.
she has to deal with people thinking that she's loud. I do live in a shared vicinity, but my roommates are really nice, and they're also night owls, so I don't think they're really bothered by me being awake and streaming. So far, my parents haven't really said anything to me. I think because for the first time, I was not this older sibling doing something and my parents having to figure out what I'm doing. It was my younger siblings that kind of paved the way for me.
Yeah.
So they still live with my parents. They have to deal with a lot of whatever my parents might complain about, but I think my parents have just kind of learned that I'm going to whatever I want, so they don't really say anything positive or negative about streaming.
I see. I see. Would you say that streaming, like just in general, affects you mentally, like in any way? Because normally, for instance, what I would hear from other guests is like sometimes like you can't help but to be affected by numbers per se. Yeah, anything specific for you?
Mm, I actually just had a really deep conversation with one of my other friends about this,
Mm-hmm.
but I do get a little bit affected by numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easy to say like they don't matter, but they do a little bit. Nobody wants to stream to nobody. You're streaming because you want to have some semblance of an audience. Um, I've been really blessed that I have an amazing support system and some really truly amazing followers and friends that kind of always make it a point to pop in, whether it's to say hi or to flirt.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that has really helped me with my perspective is that if you just because the worst part is when you compare yourself to others. If you're like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just as good at them at this game, or I think I'm just as interesting, or I'm just as funny or charming or whatever, so why do I not get the same pull? If you just see everybody that you're maybe comparing yourself to as like your friend, like your buddy, like for example, my sister Sophie, she has more numbers than me, and that's just part of it. Um, but that's my sister. Like I'm not gonna be jealous of my sister. I want her to be as successful as possible. And so if I just see anybody that I could potentially compare myself to, if I'm like, that's my sister, that's my friend, I love them so much, why would I get jealous of them? I just want to see them be so successful. I think that
Mm-hmm.
that really has helped my perspective because I don't know, why would I look at my sister and feel bad about where I'm at? I'm just happy that she's doing so well. And I can only hope that someday that's me too. So I think viewing everybody as your friend and trying to learn something from them rather than competition and playing the comparison game. Um, it's a habit. It's not something that comes easy, but I think it's a habit that once you develop it, um, it stops bothering you so much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for sharing that. So, give me your thoughts about like the disparity of streaming as a guy versus a girl on this
Mm.
platform.
Thought about this a lot. This is also a very interesting conversation. I was actually just doing some like research because I was kind of wanting to know some numbers and statistics on this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really easy for people to say that girls have it easier, but statistically, that's sort of incorrect because if you look at the top 100 most well-paid streamers, only like two of them are women. It's like Pokimane and or something like that, which is so how could you say that women have it easy when you look at everybody that is successful and there's like a handful, less than 10%. I think the most important thing. Oh, are you jumping? No. Okay. The most important thing. Sorry. um, the most important thing, disparity wise, I think that I saw was that women are like maybe 2 or 3 times more likely to get click on their thumbnail. So you're more likely to get exposure, but men, I think by like 5 or 6 times, are more likely to have concurrent viewers over a period. So somebody that stops by and then continues to stop.
Mm.
So women might get more exposure, but that doesn't mean that people stick around. And I also don't know. I don't know if anybody's complaining about it, but I think some people complain about the attention that women get, maybe. But I'm like, who is giving them attention? It's men. Like, you can't be mad at a woman for getting more exposure when it's other guys that are giving her exposure, right? So that's like Twitch is predominantly still run by cis white men. So um, women maybe getting more exposure is just a product of the environment that was created. Um, I also think that as a girl, you have to deal with a lot of harassment too. I don't really speak to my male counterparts that are told that, oh, you're a man, I'm gonna sit AFK because you're probably gonna mess. Like, oh, I'm gonna not play until you die. Like, I've never had anyone that's a guy tell me that they've experienced that, and maybe they have. I don't want to speak for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems to be a very common experience. If to any girl that plays competitive games, if they play Valorant, League, or anything,
Yeah.
if something, people will just refuse. Like, I refuse to use voice chat if it's a random queue because people will just automatically start treating you terribly. So each comes with their own pros and cons, but it's still very much a man's world, and we're figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hi.
All right. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Okay, so from your own personal experience so far, what advice would you give to those who are trying to get started with Twitch or are just trying to grow on the platform?
Don't be afraid to reach out to your friends for help and let them know that you're streaming. I also think you kind of just have to not be afraid to be annoying. I posted a lot on my Instagram to get started. I have an okay following on Instagram, and most of my close friends in my circle don't really use Twitch, so I kind of knew that I had to externalize my reach if I wanted anyone to actually come and watch. I would say something that makes a really big difference is just setting up your profile and your overlays from the get-go. If somebody goes to your profile, they're going to want to know a little bit about you. I think if you just go to Fiverr or Etsy, you spend $5, you can get some really cool panels and overlays. And I think that makes a really big difference in production. Just from people that maybe don't have any of those. So, it's not a money sink. I'm not really plugging anybody to go spend a whole bunch of money, but just those small little things when you first start out, I think it makes a really big difference, from you and the next person that just started streaming.
Okay, so that's the advice. Wrapping things up with the Twitch conversation. I don't know if you've done your homework on this one, but all right, last question. Do you know where this is going?
Yes.
Dang it. All right, I'll ask you anyways. All right. For the viewers, this is for everyone here. How does it feel to be famous?
Putting myself in the hypothetical situation where I would be famous, I would imagine that it's very stressful and also kind of nice. Hypothetically. If I was.
Oh no, chat says otherwise.
Shut up, Andy.
Alright. Cool. Hypothetically. Yeah. Alright, we're gonna talk briefly about Valorant. Just some quick questions. Favorite agent and least favorite agent?
I am a Killjoy main, tried and true. I love Killjoy and Brimstone. I say alternate between them.
Oh, you're cutting off a little bit. Sorry. You said Killjoy main?
Killjoy and Brimstone. I probably alternate between them. I'm trying to hold my mic close to me. I probably alternate between them, but mostly Killjoy. Least favorite agent. The one that's the most annoying to play against would be Breach, but he is fun to play. So, but when there's a Breach on the other team, rest assured you're gonna have a bad time.
All right. So, same variation or different variation, I mean. Which agent do you think's the actual best in the game versus the worst? So not necessarily you playing them.
I think Reyna is probably the best. I think she has the most useful util because she has a blind and a heal and her dismiss. And her ult, I think, is also a stim because you fire faster with it.
So she's sort of just like all of the best parts of different agents in one. Which makes me wonder why I'm not a Reina main, but I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's probably just the most OP. Worst. This is definitely not a super educated response because I haven't played every single agent, but
That's
the
okay.
one that I probably see the most underutilized, or I don't know, I'm never sure what to expect when I'm playing with them, is a Cypher. I don't know. I don't think he really does anything that you can't do with a Killjoy.
Okay, and how about best gun in the game and worst?
I've been an Ares demon. I don't think it's particularly the best gun. It's the one I kind of just got used to. But recently I've been playing a lot more Phantom. I like it so far. And worst is the Frenzy. I don't like the Frenzy. I can't control the spray, and I don't have enough bullets.
All right, favorite skin set?
I think the Elder Flame is cool. I just love seeing the dragon animation.
And now rank your maps from favorite to least.
Okay. I don't like Breeze. Breeze is at the bottom.
Okay.
Just above that would maybe be Split or Fracture. Fracture's okay when you're playing Killjoy, but it's still just not my favorite. What is it? I don't like Haven. I don't really like Haven. I like Ascent. Bind. I also like Bind.
Okay.
What am I missing?
Icebox.
Icebox very solidly in the middle. I don't hate it and I don't love it. It's okay. Dang, just say you hate all the maps. I don't hate all the maps.
So, sounds like you like 2 of them, you're neutral about 1, and you don't like 4 of them.
I guess so.
Alright. Okay. Coming down to the random questions that I have. This is like nearing the end of the podcast. At this point, if you guys have any specific questions you would like to ask Rach, please just tag me and ask your question. And yeah, I'll get started. Biggest pet peeve?
People that are flaky. If you cannot commit to your commitments, then don't do it. People that chew with their mouth open. Or like smack their lips. It's like the I can't do that. Yeah. Or people that blame others for things that are within their control. Like people that are like, oh yeah, I would be way better at Twitch if I was a pretty girl. Like, I don't know. Or you could just be a better streamer. Sorry, I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion.
All good, all good. How does it feel to date an actual Shiba?
He's not an actual Shiba. Yeah, I do have a Shiba though. So if you're asking what it's like to have one, it's like having another cat, basically.
Gotcha. Do you want to remind us what your biggest red flags are when it comes to relationships? So it was asked again.
I think I said people that are inflexible and refuse to meet you in the middle. That it's kind of like my way or the highway. What else did I say? I said like not being nice to service workers or saying that what they do is unskilled. I feel like I said one more thing. I don't know. That's all I remember right now.
Mm-hmm. No problem. Uh, does your cat behind you hold knives like your emo?
If she did, I would be in trouble because sometimes I forget to feed her. So my life would be in danger probably. But thankfully she cannot. She has no thumbs.
What is your favorite part of a house and why?
Any house?
Sure.
My current favorite part of where I'm living in this house is my office because I've never had one before and now I have one
Mm-hmm.
and I can yell and stream and decorate it and do whatever I want in here.
Okay, Andy's question. If you could rebrand, what would you consider adding slash changing slash removing first?
Oh, I'm still figuring out my brand, so that's a kind of a difficult question. Oh, if I could rebrand. I don't know. I overshare. There's a lot of really suspicious clips of me saying suspicious things on Twitch. So maybe I wouldn't say so many suspicious things. I'd be more wholesome. You guys wouldn't get to see the real me. I don't know. I like where I'm at.
Okay, what's one thing you can change that you can't really change within your streaming career? Would it benefit you, or is it just a personal change?
What's one thing you can change? I'm still trying to figure out that question.
If there is anything you'd want to change. If not, then disregard.
I would have a camera that focuses on me 100% of the time and not on my background. I still need to figure that out.
Alright, what is your definition of a perfect life?
I would have a house with a backyard where my dogs can run freely without being afraid that they're gonna get hit by a car. Being able to work just enough to keep your brain stimulated, but not enough that if you take a day off, that you feel like your finances are in danger. I think being able to pursue whatever silly little hobby that piques your interest, having the free time and the finances and tools at your disposal to do that. I don't know. Life is just so cool, and I think we don't always get to experience it to the fullest extent because we're worried about finances and home and interpersonal things. So I think being able to explore whatever you want without fear of social repercussion or financial repercussion would be a pretty perfect life.
Deep. Okay. Biggest change in your life or lifestyle that has caused the most improvement?
It comes with a con, but I think moving to California, I have met so many really cool people here. It's so awesome to see food places go viral and to be like, that's only 20 minutes away from where I live. That's so cool. I love eating. And there's just a lot of opportunities living near LA. There's so many cool people that live around here as well. But the con is that I'm far away from my family and I can't see them as much as I would like to.
What's your favorite Korean barbecue meat?
any kind of steak. There was a place that I went to in Irvine that I think I ordered the ribeye, and usually they give you like little tiny slices of ribeye. They gave us a whole ass steak.
Mm-hmm.
Like a whole piece of steak that would normally cost like $30 at any other restaurant. After that I like spammed the steak button because I'm gonna eat all the steak that I want if I'm paying all you can eat prices.
From Toxic, how are you such a cutie?
It's all an act. It's all fake. I don't know. Oh, and I have a really rigorous skincare routine. That's the only actual answer you're gonna get out of me.
Poke or sushi?
I love poke, but I think probably sushi takes the cake.
Okay, there you go. Biggest fear?
Saying no to something and then regretting it after. Or dying unexpectedly before I get the chance to do something that I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, pancakes or waffles?
That's hard. I know people are really solidly one way or the other. I make a mean pancake though, and a mean waffle. I think if I had to pick, I'd have to pick waffle. Pancakes are really good too. I'm on the line.
All right. Worst experience while streaming?
I got bot followed once. That wasn't really cool. I actually had to sub in Toxic to help me get rid of some of them. I got bot followed pretty much anytime that people are just being dicks on Twitch. Like, they're being mean. I don't know. I don't really have like bad streams, but sometimes people are mean or getting bot followed. Anytime you do stuff that you're not supposed to and you just make life difficult for the streamer, people need to sit down and evaluate what they're doing.
Yeah. Are you a believer of alternate universes?
Sort of, in that I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Because there's, I don't know, anytime I learn anything about space or the ocean, my brain explodes a little bit. So I'm gonna say it's not out of the realm of possibility, but if you asked me like anything more than that, I don't know. I don't have any serious thoughts on that.
What would you consider as your greatest accomplishment in life so far and greatest failure or regret?
Greatest accomplishment would be having 2 dogs and a cat. It doesn't feel like a lot, but growing up, I pestered my parents nonstop about getting pets. If Sophie is still here, she can attest to that. I think I asked them multiple times a year if I could have a dog, and they always said no. So as soon as I was financially capable, I adopted a puppy. And then I adopted another dog, and I don't know when it's gonna stop, but I don't know. That was like a lifelong dream that I had that I finally got to do once I had adult money. Greatest failure? There were a lot of things that I considered to be failures in the moment. Like, there were times when I auditioned for competitive ensembles. Like, percussion is a huge part of my life, but it wasn't always peaches and roses. And there were times when I auditioned for things and I failed, or I didn't get in. But almost all of those experiences led to other opportunities. Like, I auditioned for a group and I didn't get it in, so I ended up performing with a different ensemble, and I performed with them, that performance from that ensemble that was not my first choice led to somebody watching me, thinking that I was really good, and contacting me for a position at one of the best percussion ensembles in the world. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gotten cut from another group that I really wanted to be at. So every failure, so cliche, every failure is a learning opportunity, and you just have to give life the chance to show you what you're learning.
Question is, are you happy?
Right now, yes. I'm drinking boba and I'm talking to Wilson. Why wouldn't I be happy?
What do you think is your edge or makes you stand out from other streamers or content creators?
You want me to say something nice about myself? I think that I am business minded. So I do think relatively far into the future. So I think I have an understanding of business and the behind the scenes that maybe not everybody knows or considers before they start stuff like this. Purely from like if you're coming to my stream and watching me, what might set me apart? I don't know. I think that I'm friendly. I think I'm relatively easy to talk to, or I like to think that I am. And I'm a curious person. So I love to learn things. And I actually genuinely really care when somebody new comes into my chat. I think something that makes me sad as a viewer is when I go into someone's chat and maybe they don't notice that I'm there. So I try really, really, really hard to take account of everybody that is in my chat. I don't know if that's an edge, but I think it's just a bonus, a plus.
Okay, so what was your first impression of me?
My first impression of Wilson. I think I met you briefly in someone else's stream. Like, I think it might have been like Giles or I don't know, because I like recognized your name when you rated me. I will say that I didn't really have an opinion of you at the time that you rated me. I was just like, wow, this is really cool and super nice, and I recognize this name, but I don't know who you are. But I honestly, I love your streams. I've been sort of talking about you to anybody that will listen right now because it's a fun place to be. Yeah, I'm like, have you heard of our Lord and Savior Wilson Chang yet? I think I think you have a talent for getting people engaged and interested in whatever you're doing, whether that's just chatting or if you're serenading the chat, which you've done while I was there, or even playing Valorant. I have a really hard time juggling chat and Valorant, just because it's really difficult. It's a skill to do that. That I don't know, unless you've streamed and you've tried to do it. I don't know if people realize how difficult it is to do that. So I think, yeah, guess my first impression. Sorry, I'm getting off topic, but my first impression is that you're talented, easy to talk to, and I also just think that you are innovative and you work really hard. I was really impressed with how quickly you put together the Valorant game show. I think that's one of the things that has impressed me the most so far. So, snaps.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so as of now, who are the top 5 streamers that you find yourself watching nowadays?
At this current moment, I do watch you. I watch you a lot. I watch. She's a professional streamer. She does it for a living, but she's one of my best friend's older sisters. If you guys have ever heard of the Mab Show, she streams for Xfinity and Xbox. She's so sweet, and she's a mom, and she juggles everything that she's doing, so she's kind of incredible. Definitely a comfort streamer for me. I always watch my sister's streams. I think she's very good at streaming. Sophie Excel and Bright Kit Katie, both of them. Somebody else that I also really like to watch. I have 2 more, so I guess that's 6. But I would say Jan and Kales, who are both some of my best friends. I also try to watch them a lot. I don't know, there's a lot. It's hard to pick 5. I could give you like 10.
Like the anime list.
Like the anime. That's a difficult question.
All right. If you had to start from square one with all the knowledge that you had today, what would you change or like approach? Like how would you change your approach?
I would probably try less hard to stream games. I think when I very first started, I felt like if I wasn't streaming League or Valorant, that nobody would watch me, and that I needed to set myself apart by playing games like that, which sounds silly because so many people stream those games. I don't know how I'm setting myself apart, and I'm not even particularly good at them. So, if you want to watch some scuffed plays, feel free. I've had a lot of my friends tell me that they genuinely really like my just chatting streams where they can just sit and talk to me about life.
Mhm.
So I'd probably focus a little bit more in on that and stop feeling so pressured to do anything else.
Okay. So you did mention that you wanted to start your podcast, but I didn't really
Yeah.
ask you anything about it specifically. So what is like your plan so far that you have?
So I've only sort of spoken about it out loud. I haven't quite put pen to paper yet,
Okay.
but I love podcasts.
Mhm.
I almost listen to podcasts more than I listen to music. I love true crime, and I love science podcasts, and I love news podcasts. Really anything. And the thing that is the most interesting to me about podcasts is I just like learning different things, learning about different people, and I do like it when they're scripted. So I do like a certain amount of, like random tangents, fun facts, but I think the podcasts that I find myself the most drawn to are a little bit more short form and more scripted. So sort of like start to finish, it's pretty clear what you're going to be listening to. Um, so I was thinking, sort of to like connect me wanting to learn more about people and also having more of a scripted short form narrative podcast. Um, I want to talk to people about their hopes and dreams, and I feel like
Ooh.
that, like very specifically honing in on like whatever people's goals are or what they want from their life, because everybody has them. Everybody has some, even if they're not super well thought out. Um, so I think I'd want to talk to people about their passions, what they want out of their life, and also talk to them about maybe uh, what their plan is to get there. I think a lot of
Mhm.
people have dreams, but not a lot of people have an idea of how they're going to get there, how they're going to attain it.
Yeah.
So, um, I don't want to say that I'm like a professional in that I know everything about how to make those sorts of plans, but in school I wrote a lot of business proposals, and a lot of that includes market research, projections from 5 to 10 years, 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, and doing sort of more data analysis. So I think if I have friends that, if I can even offer like a piece of advice that would help them, I think it would be nice to do that. And so I kind of just want to interview friends, new people, talk to them about their passions, their dreams. And I think it would be cool to interview people that maybe have already attained their dreams and maybe already have what they want out of life, and to talk to them about how they got there and what's next. That's it. it's
Mhm.
still very much a thought bubble that I haven't quite written everything yet, but I think short form, talk to people about their inspirations. A little bit more scripted, I'd probably provide them with my questions so that they have an idea of what their answer would be. And maybe work on plans and manifesting their success.
While you're on that topic still, do you mind repeating what your like hopes and dreams are for the future?
Yeah. Short term, I want to go more into the data analytics side of human resources because right now I work in talent acquisition. So I want to get more into sort of the data tech part of it. That's short-term career goal, but long-term, I think it would be nice to start, maybe my own business if that means continuing with content creating or something else. And I want to have a home with a backyard for my dogs and be able to travel and eat food. Those are my dreams.
All right. This is the last one from me. So, using your connections, who would you like to see as a future guest on this podcast and why?
My sister, Sophie. Because I think she is the next big streamer. I think she could be really incredible one day, and I know that she wants to do it for a living, so I think you guys would get along. She's probably very embarrassed right now, but I don't know. Maybe it's embarrassing to say that you're inspired by your little sister, but I think she's really incredible, and I think she's good at networking and being a streamer, and I don't know. I think if she was given the right momentum in the right direction, I think she could blow up.
Love that. All right, well, this is just about the end. How are you feeling now after going through this entire podcast? Talking about life.
I was very nervous and excited, and I told you that I was literally like doing research and making notes because I didn't want to be really caught off guard by anything.
Yeah.
So I don't really like surprises. But it's really cool, and hopefully I wasn't boring. Hopefully I was at least a little interesting and provided some insight. And it makes me want to talk more to you, Wilson, and learn more about you because you learned all about me. So if/when I start my podcast, we'll get you on it. And
okay, for sure.
I'll put you in the hot seat.
All right. Sounds good. And if you have episodes of your own, I could do some research on that, to prepare. So
let's go.
Be really fitting.
Let's go.
I appreciate that. Well, I'm gonna close this out for the YouTube portion at least. What are you planning to do right after?
I was thinking about streaming.
Let's go.
Yeah,
it's like near your time, right? To stream anyways, like a little past 10. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to the Chang Gang podcast. This has been episode 61 featuring Rachel, aka chumbyGal. Rachel, thank you so much for dedicating the time and commitment for being here, expressing yourself, talking about life experiences. Do you have any last words for all the viewers?
Thank you so much, Wilson, for putting this together and for being willing to listen to all of my random thoughts and tangents. And if you guys liked what you see, then be sure to follow Wilson and subscribe. Yeah. And if you like my cat, feel free to follow me too.
Yes, guys. On the bottom right, you can see the Instagram handles. There is an exclamation guest command, which is a direct link to Rachel's Twitch channel. She is going to stream after this, so feel free to drop by, show some love, drop the follows for sure, ask whatever you want, just interact, make new friends. But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already, and hit that subscribe button. I welcome you all to the Chang Gang with open arms, and this will be on YouTube within the next few days. So for those watching right now, I'll try to get it up as soon as possible. But thank you again, Rachel. Have a good day, everyone. Peace.
Thank you.